everyday gospel. Gospel way. He said, I am the hados. We must go through the same narrow way that leads to the straight gate. And very few find that straight gate, Holy Ghost. So thank you, Father, for the bride. It's a teeny tiny flock, and only those that you chose, they're your, through Shiloh, your purchased possession. He'll come back and redeem the bride and call their Shem, their, he said, have your loins girded in my service. So those that are in the gospel, that are in the narrow way, those who continue to be narrowed. Narrow is theologo, to be pushed from both sides, to be narrowed down, so you'll fit into a straight gate. Thank you, Father, for that. Thank you for the straight gate, ones that you, through again, Shiloh, the Word. You are the Word. The Word became flesh, that is the Hamashiach. Thank you for that, Father. We must be like the one who they hung, and he paid that price, bride price for his bride, and he is the bridegroom, and he'll call again. They'll have their lamps trimmed to be burning bright. Thank you for that gospel. That's the narrow. That is not to be in the world, but not of it, is what he tells us. So we're not too supposed to partake in these worldly, earthly things. Thank you, Father, for that. He said, come out of her, my people. So it's in the Word, it's in the gospel. Thank you for the gospel. We must suffer and be crucified, not loved. He said, if you're loved by the world, you'll be hated by my Father. And he said, they hated me before they hated you. So we're not here to be loved. Remember, the world is doing their bang bang New Year's in the middle of the winter. 2025 ritual. So Gregorian lunar worship. So we're not to celebrate anything, especially calendars. Remember in Jeremiah, he told us the ways of the heathens and their traditions and their customs, their celebrations of the sun and the tree, and that is Moloch, and that's grove, and Baal is sun, Baal in the grove, and he divorced his bride for going after Baal in the grove in the Old Testament. He said there'd be a wedding feast of the lambs, and only those that the gospel, they share the gospel. He said, don't boast because you know, but you have to share it. Love is charitable, remember, and it's patient. So we must do what Father tells us to do. That is the word agape. That is the love, not phileo. That's the world. It's to love the things like phones, Apple or Android or whatever phone you choose, or maybe Ford or Chevy, but that's phileo. Peter struggled with that too, with the worldly things. Remember, we're not supposed to be loved by the world. So if you're loved by the world, he said you'd be hated by my Father. So not here to be nice. The word nice means to be stupid. So do what Father tells you and walk and follow in his commandments. It's what he tells us to do, right? If I didn't call out to their hearts to seek after me, he said, not one of us, the heart is continually filled with wickedness, what the scriptures tell us. So he said not one of us would, so you're not going to make anybody come to God. There's no such thing as accepting Christ. There's no free will or luck, and can't be saved, no being saved. He hasn't come back and redeemed. That's something he already bought. He saved. Sozo is the Greek word, to be carried, lifted, picked up from beginning point to an ending point. As you must think, it's salvation. You have to die, and at the last trump, then he comes back and picks up. That is redemption, what he saved. You're going to spend it on this earthly things. He said, come out of her, my people. So leave your treasure on this rock. You put it in a higher place, not in the sky. Dead people don't go to the sky. So thank you, Father, for that. Thank you for creating the firmament. You told us don't be dismayed at these signs like heathens, but these people love their celebrations and their worship, especially the worship of the birth of the self. That's idolatry. And you warned us that you again divorced your bride for going after these same things, idolatry and Baal and Grove. And here they are again in the middle of the winter celebrating the new year. Numb. Abyss, knowledge, no knowledge, that's hell. Hell's not below your feet. Hell's the word abyss. Revelation 9:11 says they have a king over them. That king is the messenger, or angelos is the word angel. An angel is the definition, if you'll define it, as a messenger, and that is Apollyon. Sun worship, Baal, and the grove. Here we are again doing it after what he told us. Remember, this is the deadly head wound that was healed in Scripture that we were told not to worship, and they're doing it again. So, can't talk about it, right? It's not the gospel. It's space is antichrist. He said, "Be not dismayed at the ways. There would be signs in the stars, sun, and moon, but these people think they're spinning on a planet. So, can't help people that think they're spinning on a ball. Leave them alone. They've already been no knowledge. Leave alone. Can't turn a goat into a sheep." So, thank you, Father, for that. That's the gospel. He said, come out of her. So, the kingdom of heaven is not in the sky. Heaven's not above your head. Heaven is the ruling class. Father had pride his favorite. No chat. Nobody wants to talk. No. And they're all mesmerized because they think they're spinning, at warp speed. God is a title. Godspeed or warp speed? Tell me. Nanu. So, it's all right. It's the gospel. Very few find the straight gate because they're in Broadway. They're in the Broadway speed, it's spinning in the sky. Jesus, the sky daddy. They're God's in the sky. There's no such thing as God, and that's a title. So the Most High is these are pagan, Lord and Christ and all these words. The Most High, you mean the big G God? If you're going to use letters, yods, or he said, don't add a jot, that's a period, or a tittle. That'd be like a comma, the smallest of punctuation. Not even a yod or take away. He said, I'll blot your name out of the book of life and you go to hell. But people think hell's below their feet because they don't have any knowledge. That's the word bis. Remember, my people shall perish for lack of bis. That's busos or batos. These are words of knowledge. And he said, my people shall perish for lack of. The word abyss is no knowledge. That's what this common English, or what people know as American, more of an American thing. I call it American. People don't even speak formal English anymore. Hell was a thought that they think it's below their head. Or above their feet is heaven. That's not how they're stuck by gravity spinning on a ball. I guess that's what they say. So I don't do shapes in here either. It's childish. So just know what the scriptures say. It says, remember, it says you cannot be moved from this rock. The heavens will be shaken, and the earth is ruled, and they're ruled by their tongue. It's called dialectus, gloss of tongue. There's no such thing as speaking in tongues. No free will, no luck. Father creates all things. No being saved. The Father is not sent. Remember, Shiloh is not returned to redeem. Is to pick up something you already bought. We are his purchased possession. That is the bride. He's the bridegroom. And it's not named like it says in remember, if you were to pray like this, our Father who art in heaven, that's not above your head. Hallowed be thy, it's not name, it's Shem, not name. And then when people think name, they start putting letters to those names. He means all of the letters of the Old Testament minus the ones that are blotted out. And then he made a covenant with his bride to be spiritual, not flesh. That's the failing of flesh. That's why Paul said, wrestle not against flesh and blood. We're not under the testament of old blood sacrifice and flesh laws of flesh. He blotted those out in the book of Colossians 2:14. Once pounded out by the scribe, I'll remember these laws on tablets, not on these modern day. You think this is the first time we've had some kind of technology of take copper and you spin it around a magnet, right? And you spin that around, it make a toroidal or field or electricity, modern societies. But these laws were pounded out. Remember, this was spoken into existence. You know anything about sound or polarity or frequency, the cancellation or negation? Like, how about no knowledge? That's the word hell. People think hell's below their feet. They think they spin on a planet. There's no such thing as a planet. It's not a word ever written in scripture. See, these people do things that are anti-Christ. God's in the sky. That's Baal worship, sun and worshiping. They thought the sun at the equinox was dying, and they prayed to Saturn to try to slow. Saturn has the slowest rotation in the upper firmament, but they thought they could slow the sun. They were just pagans, and now they pagan align this calendar with worshiping pole worship and crosses, which is antichrist, like the Ankh, the pagan Ankh. Christ is a pagan term, not written in the text ever once by the scribes, ever. See, these are things of not of the gospel. He said, don't add. And these people who adding to the text, and he said, do not do that. That's the last thing that the Hamashiach told us, do not take away. If you add, you will receive of all the written plagues are in this book. If you take even the smallest or add or take away a jot or tittle, I'll blot your name out. Remember, and he blotted out those laws, as I said, in Colossians 2 and 14, in Paul's writing, once written on stone, the laws of flesh. Remember, wrestle not against flesh and blood. We're not under the laws of celebration or feed or ritual or laws of flesh, or it's not what goes in a man under this covenant, not by, remember, vengeance. He said, be mine under this covenant, but what comes out of the man, and the man is all flesh, black, white, brown, red, and yellow, Jew, Gentile, man, and woman. So this is not, and all the sins of the world are not these, idolatry, because you can't keep your legs closed, your pants, to yourself or whatever, or your sticky fingers and you thief or whatever. It's because you stand up to perversion of people who pervert the word, and only he chose. It doesn't matter. Remember, you're not coming to Jesus. There's no such thing as Jesus in the text. That's never a word ever written. The J didn't exist in Old Testament, nor did it in the Hebrew and New Greek Testament, an old Jewish book written in Greek. These people add, and he said, don't do that. And they are accepting of that. And that's the problem, was that Paul said another Jesus, if you're going to use a translation and another gospel. So keep it gospel, and you won't have any problem, because Father does it. He narrows. He pours out that measure. The measure you pour out on others will be returned out on you. So live by the sword, die by the sword. I don't know about that. He comes with a sword, not with a bow and a toxin. That's sun worship and Moloch, and January we coming up with Janus and their ritual of the god Apollyon, February, Lupercalia, all this worship of Ishtar, the wife of Satan, Semiramis, the one birthed on December 25th in the middle of the winter. Their birth, the celebration of their birth, and their sun aligning with the tree at the equinox, equal day, equal night. All this is this symbology that you are warned of, and idolatry and imagery, but you will not read the book of Jeremiah. You don't go through Paul's writings and realize this testament that we're under is not something in the sky. Father's not in the sky. Father used to visit one day a year, but now he's written on hearts of the bride, and it's not bound by fate or by law, but by destiny that we're prepaid for. They're bought and purchased possession. He knows who his bride is, and you're not going to turn a goat into a sheep. It says it in the book of, these scriptures, Bible is book. I don't like to use the term Bible because there's been such change. Translation is not transliteral, literal, no text change or definition. Jod, yod, or tittle, that's transliteration. And these people make translations and accept that. And he told, do not do that. It's the last thing he said to us. But remember, many are called, but Oligos is the word oligos. It's a Greek word meaning a puny number. His bride is a teeny tiny flock. It's most people go to hell. It's in the book of Matthew. Read the book of Matthew. Start there. Start reading one word at a time. Maybe this word will come alive. It was a new living will and testament. Remember, under this covenant, he said, let vengeance be mine, saith the Lord. And that's a pagan term, but we'll use your pagan. We're supposed to narrow ourselves and not say it. Pagan means that, somebody does this tree and grove and sacrifice for better, harvest. And it's paganism. Father told us this is outlawed. We're not to do these things, and celebrating calendars. And he, through Shiloh, fulfilled all. Remember, you remember the prophecy of no stone left upon another. Where did those Old Testament laws go? What covenant are we under now? Remember, Paul's writings, once written on stone tablets, pounded out by the scribes on rock, law is now written on fleshy tables with blood. Remember, he paid with that bride price, that blood. That's a spiritual bride that he calls out, because he took flesh and he's seated at the right hand of Father. So there is no physical under this covenant. That's the difference between his bride and the rest of the world that goes to hell and gnashes teeth, that's stuck on having this flesh. Father is the word Hokadesh, or holy, Ruach Hokadesh, Holy Spirit or Holy Ghost, most pure, without darkness, pure light, without blemish. Paul's writings, remember the inner man that's blameless. So he told us to circumcise the flesh, the outer man, not a ritual Old Testament, but the literal spiritual circumcision from within, like Noah was told to baptize the ark inside and out with the red pitch. And if he'd left even a single, without completely overcoming, a captain can't sleep at night, if there's a pinhole leak in his ship, right? He is Father. He wants you to be purified, as he has said, purify yourself as he purified himself. We're supposed to not do these things of this world. That's part of that baptism. It's a process. It's not a dipping. You have to be completely overcome. Like it's not just something you can do, a one quick fix, like a sit down and, one day, Sunday, fun day, get up off your ass. Jesus. Ass is somebody you can't learn, doesn't want to have a willingness to have a relationship with the Word. Father is the Word. The Word became flesh is Shiloh. That's the Hamashiach. They hung from a tree on a cross. Cross is pagan, like the pagan Ankh, your hoop and this is all Old Testament, and we're warned of these things, and people are doing it again over and over, and they'll do it throughout time. But guess what? This time he's going to bring the fire. So he will take care of this. Just go out and share the gospel. That's what you're supposed to do. We don't do it just on Sunday. The Sabbath, they prepared on Friday because Saturday was the Sabbath, but they still studied. And under this gospel, and this has been over 2,600 years ago, that we're supposed to be sharing this everyday crucifixion, not loved by the world, but thlipsis is what Paul said. Remember, we must go through thlipsis to receive, to have that crown to set at the feet of Shiloh, so you can receive what is known as your name. But it's not by letters. It's have your lamps trimmed and have your loins girded in my service. Believe is a verb, and it's an action word. You might want to go back to school yourself. Stop telling yourself this book that you think you know. You don't know anything about the book. You don't know who the Hamashiach was. Nobody carried crosses. Get that out of your mind. No, there was no such thing as carrying crosses. He tells you in Matthew and in Luke, in this modern day scripture, to carry a cross, but that's the crucifixion that you must go through. What he said, be in this world, but be not of it. Come out of her, my people. You're not supposed to do what the world is doing. The world thinks that it's okay to celebrate. He fulfilled all his celebrations. They ate lamb. He was the sacrifice of the lamb, as a wedding feast of the lambs. And this crackers and grape juice rituals of Catholicism, which is the deadly head wound that was healed, and all of them that are attached to it. They do the Pope, Papa. He said, call no man father, call no man teacher. That's the word prophet. A false teacher is a scorpizzo, and he warned of that. These are the first people he throws into what you call hell or the lake of fire. And it's the word abyss in Revelation 9:11. And that word is knowledge. Hell is not below your feet. Hell is the word no knowledge. So that's what it is. You can't change that. Stop changing definitions. That's translation. He told us, do not do that. And don't go after transgender gods. That is Jesus Christ, birthed on December 25th. The word Jesus doesn't exist in the text, neither nor does the word Christ. If you're offended by that, you're not in love with the word. And I'm not picking at letters. If you're hooked on, there was no J in Old Testament or New. So, you'll have to stand with Father Shiloh there to cover you for the sins of the world, because you were standing up to perverted law. Those are his disciples that he's talking about in the book of Luke. Fear not, only God's flock. That those are the disciples in Luke, as he said, deny yourself. In Matthew daily. Luke, he said, my disciples, bear your cross, be crucified by the world, not loved. He said, before they hated you, they hated me. So you're not here to be loved, not here to have friends and make friends with your people who, he said, don't sup with vipers, don't break bread. I didn't say you can't be charitable and help people out, but he wanted you to help people who don't want to help themselves. Don't help people that are not in the narrow way, that don't want to be narrowed. And you can't change that. You'll know them by their fruit. Judge them by their cover, because under this testament, it's man and woman, Jew and Gentile, black, white, brown, red, and yellow. Agape is the word love. Love thy neighbor like thy enemy, like thyself. You just treat everything the same. You don't get to change that. That's Father's choosing who already picked his bride and whose names will be called out, because name is not named like Jesus or Tom or Dick or Sarah or Harry, whatever. That's not what name is. It's Shem, and it means the authority. And under this authority, he said to be meek and bear your cross, or 7 times 70, to turn your cheek. These are things that we must do as a long process. There's no quick fix to getting to, we don't go to the sky when we die. You sit there and gnash teeth. You're stuck on this flesh. Then you coming back, Father's hope at dash. And that's the word spirit. So people aren't in it. That's the word. Father is the word. The word became flesh. Remember? That is, you just stuck on the flesh. And that's why most people go to hell, and they're already in hell. Hell's the word no knowledge. So they have no knowledge of the true gospel of the Hamashiach, which is the Messiah. Christ would be anointed of the Christ. Antichrist, you're either with Christ or you're antichrist. You're antichrist if you add a jot to his word. Tittle, he is the word. If you tittle is like a period, a yod is a letter. So you might want to go back and unstudy and restudy, and then you'll start understanding the word is, he's the word. What do you word with an idol or some image of some cracker Jesus like Caesar Borgia, the imagery of some homosexual pope's lover? That this is all historical, and histories can be changed, because you can find obviously change in Old Testament lexicon Hebrew and new lexicon. These are like your modern day Webster dictionary. So you better start studying this in the word that it was written in. Old Testament, you need to know more than the word. You need to know cultures, customs. The book is full of idioms. There's a difference between an idiot and an idiom, or a parable, correct? Idiot is not an insult. Idiot means you've never even seen it or heard it once in your entire life, and so that's not an insult. But if I call somebody a scriptural idiot, or they're idiot in a certain subject field of study, they take it as an insult. So I already know their IQ is, and it's not about there's a difference between street smart and book smart. That. So you can be intelligent, not very smart. That. So, well, anyways, moving on. Remember, Father already chose his bride, so you're not turning goats into sheep. And remember, they're loving with their goat god Baphomet, the one with horns, hoof, and and breasts. They're Jesus has breasts. It's a transgender, birth in the middle of the winter. We're not supposed to celebrate anything, especially birth. That is idolatry, the birth of oneself. Well, idolatry is self, and we're not supposed to. There's only 2 birth dates in all the scriptures. One is Satan, which is the one that's locked up in the pit. Remember, he's got the key to the pit, right? He gives it to the angelos, king, messenger, the one in Revelation, and reveals that's at the great and dreadful day of the Lord. It's great for oligos, this teeny tiny flock, and the rest of the world, they go to hell. It's just the way it's written. Get over it. Get over yourself. You're here to bear your witness, take your cross up daily. In Matthew, he said, deny yourself. That's idolatry. He divorced his bride for that. Take your cross up daily and follow after me. My disciples in Luke, there's always a sister chapter, because he's always declares 2 witnesses. What makes it a contract? Remember, you had 2 witnesses. You had to go take and nail that bride bill of marriage to a tree, and they hung Christ from a tree. Remember, not a cross. He tells you to bear and take up your cross again in Matthew and Luke. It's throughout. You got to know what a cross is. But people think cross is an image. That's paganism. Cross, Catholicism. They do their Holy Mary, Mother of the Rosary, and all that's all blended of the Old Testament with the deadly head wound that was healed by Constantine in Rome. That's all. That's what I'm saying. Everybody just study any of this, they can figure it out. But it's not for you to make people figure it out. Seeking you shall find doesn't mean that you're going to make it. That's the word. That's the knowledge. It takes more than just studying just letters. And he is the letters, jots, yods, tittles. But remember, there's a lot of the names were changed to protect the innocent. How about names? Name is the word Shem. Shem is not Jesus, or Shem is not, Bob, or Shem is the word Torah. He spoke all this into existence, a toroidal field, like vibration, frequency, millimeter wave. Never mind. But he's the word. People think they're stuck on a ball and they're spinning on a planet. There's no such thing as a planet. Show me where the text says there's a planet. So just in here sharing the gospel, I'm supposed to be doing, being charitable. Can't sit here and just not share it. You say don't boast because but if you don't go out and spread that gospel, then the book of Paul's writings, Romans. So Romans 8:29. Put that on and read that for a country. So, anybody got any gospel in here? You'll probably might never see anybody who knows the gospel in your life. So that's why you're supposed to just share it. If you know it, don't boast because you know. But woe if you don't. Woe is like a horse. Remember, there's two writers of Revelation, and Revelation is the word apocalypse. It's the same word. I am Pastor Apocalypse, Pastor Revelation. So I share this gospel every time we come on here. So always take a time to be charitable with it. We have to. That's part of the Agape, 2 John 6. If you love me, you'll be my disciple. In Luke, Matthew will deny the world, and you'll share that agape with others. Love is patient, love is kind, it is meek. Remember, he said, turn your cheek 7 times 70. And it's that, yeah, don't boast. Remember, you got to go out and do this. You have to share the light. Don't sup with vipers, right? Got to share it with everybody. If you deny me in front of your friends and your family, and that's not your friends, is your worldly things. Your family is not your mother. In Old Testament, it says, honor thy father and mother. That's not your mom and dad. That's not what the scriptures are telling you there. So no such thing as a Mother's Day or Father's Day. You're blasphemous, heathen, as swine. You celebrate. We're not supposed to celebrate a single day. So just calling you out like the pagan that you are. So Satan is the adversary. Most people are Satanists. I've done all these things in past, even in this body that I'm in, this meat suit now. But, things are, about decades. He did, not me. Father chose his bride. So I'm not totally sure if I am, but I question it. But I know I don't do the things of this world, and I do what he did. He stood up to the world. He stood up to perverted law, text, scripture, the Pharisee. You do the works of your father, the adversary, Satan, the demonion, the distributor of fortunes, lies, a demon, your little g gods. You celebrate your grove and Baal and do your calendar worship and birth, and we're not supposed to celebrate any of these things. He called that out. This is all paganism. This is all, even the Hamashiach when he was here, remember? These are the synagogues of Satan, he called them. They're modern day churches. They're all the same thing. You don't find the word in church. You find a bunch of heathens, a bunch of Christians and Catholics and Protestants and religious Presbyterians and those who say they're Jews, but they're not. It's a spiritual Jew. It's a spiritual Israel. There is no physical Israel in this modern, Greek old Jewish book written in Greek Testament that he made, because it's a spiritual Israel, and it's a spiritual Jew, and it's a spiritual bride. They're not under the laws of flesh or bound by faith. Those are the ones who go to hell. So they don't know the gospel, and that's not for me to decide. I just come in here and share it because I know that he called out to my heart, and I've done things in the past that any man has done, so I'm not some kind of perfect saint. A saint is the word servant, and I make sure I correct myself too as often as I can with the word. That's the word mother. Your brothers and sisters, your mother, those that do the will of the Father, and they don't sup with vipers or cast your pearls before swine. So swine is low energy. A demon is a distributor of fortunes or lies. That's basically the word idolatry. A demon is a reverse idolater. An idolater is a distributor of fortunes or lies to self-will, doing not Father's will, the word agape. A demon is a distributor of fortunes or lies to others. Look up the definition of these words and you'll see that I'm correct. So a demon is what is the modern day translation of the word devil. There's no such thing as a devil. Devil is the word demonion. The text is replaced with the word devil, and he told us don't do that. So there's no devil. It's a distributor of fortunes or lies to others. Like there's no fortunes, there's no free will, there's no luck. Father creates all things. He is sovereign. There's only one sovereign, most high, most God, most, El, Yah, Elohim, not this modern day translation. He keeps telling us don't do that, but people keep accepting it, and that's why they're okay with celebrating again. We're not supposed to celebrate a single day. Remember, no stone will be left upon another. He fulfilled all the physical testament, destroying the old laws and destroying the literal temple and every building for going after the same thing that people are doing today and then accepting it. So he won't, he didn't accept it then, he won't accept it now. But remember, don't worry, the whole world's doing it. And you're not supposed to be doing what the world is doing. So if you don't do what the world's doing, they'll hate you. And he warned us about that, right? Told us, hey, they hated me before they hated you. If you do what this world, agape, their love, they're making up their own laws and other gospel, as Paul said, another Jesus, so they got Christ himself, if we use that pagan term, said many Christ, many Jesus, many Christ coming, look just like and mirror and perform. That's what all these religions do. They mirror this birth of this sun god, birth in the middle of the winter. Jesus Christ, the sun god, Satan, their sky daddy Jesus, the birth of the sun, and then grove, Baal in the grove. That's idolatry. Ahab married Jezebel. He taught that, or the children were taught that when Ahab went after the Torah, the Agape, the 613 statutes, commandments. He told us, don't yoke, don't sup, don't break bread, don't marry, don't intermix with people who don't want these truths. Leave them alone. You're not going to turn a goat into a sheep. The truth is the gospel. The gospel is that we're supposed to be in the narrow way, not the broad way. The broad way is with these big cities and all these beliefs of these, that's pride, one above another. We're not, he had a heavens, he had a favorite, he had a pride. That was Jacob. Remember the 12, families up against the great sea. Now the modern, Mediterranean Sea that he loved, he gave the inheritance called Israel. But that's Old Testament. These people think this Israel it's a spiritual Israel into this Testament. Remember, he hated Esau, right? He stole his inheritance. That is Moloch, Apollyon, the one locked up in Revelation 9:11. Modern day, what I've told you, the worshiping of the wheel, the Yule wheel, and the God, there's a fixed pole star. Totally debunks your heliocentric model that you're spinning. You're already in space there, space farce. Nanu, Shazbot with your Mork and your eggs and your shapeshifters and your Bigfoot and your alien is a word. So now you're going to tell me there's a physical alien? Get out of my space. Space is not above your head. That's not what space is. That's a firmament above your head. You don't live on a planet. Leave now. Anybody who's partaking in any of that, see, you don't break bread with people who think they're spinning on a ball. So tell me where it says the word planet, and then you can stay here and text, but you'll be here all day looking because there is no such thing as a planet. He created the stars, sun, and moon, and when he created heavens is the ruling class, and the earth, remember, pride is a sin, and remember, big city lights. You're not going to hear Father in the big cities, all them traffic and banging and horns and sirens and cops, and nope, narrow is the way. Notice country has a nice narrow roads in the country, huh? That's right. Hallelujah. Thank you, Father, for that. It's in the word. He said, come out of her. Oh, there you go. That's not in the city, is it? Be in it, but be not of. Okay. Be in it, but be not. Okay. Can't do what they're doing. So that's the gospel. You knew you before you were the womb. I set you aside. He said it in Jeremiah. So you got to be in love with the word, or you're doing worldly things. And world, what are you, W-O-R-L-D, or you W-H-I-R-L-E-D? That's like pervert, twist, warp, or change. That's the word pervert. Well, to pervert, add or take away, warp or twist, or Hebrew, froward is the Hebrew word to you're perverting his word. He said, if you add, you're pervert. If you take away, you're pervert. In the word. See? Quit being a pervert. Oh, quit perverting my Father's word. He said, guard his commandments. So I'm not going to let you come in here. He commands me to bear witness to his word. He's the word. The word became flesh. Hokadesh. In spirit, that is Shiloh, the one that I love. He will call out their names, right? If you want to call name, it's not by this Tracy. My name's not Tracy. You're silly. I wasn't Tracy before I came into this flesh. I won't be Tracy after I die. Stop it with that nonsense. Pastor Revelation, no, whatever. You guys call me that. Otherwise, I don't care about any of these letters and jots. I just care about his word. And how do you know I'm Tracy? Were you there with my mom and dad? They were smoking, they were hippies. So they probably got out with the doctor and took him out in the, out in the lobby and were you witness when, so you can't prove actually in a court of law, you probably really couldn't prove that my name is Tracy. I can actually, beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Yeah, right. This system's, a sham, but whatever. I still got to go through it. Remember, better be careful. No, he said, if you're loved by the world, that's agape. That is their law. And they perverted it. That's why Shiloh came here, because remember, you frowarded my Father's agape when they're Deuteronomy. Remember, they had not even, the ladies had not broken, a physical law. They made their own, always known halakha. And that was an oral law that could be written down but not or you could speak but not write down. And then there was their Haggadah, more of a formal, but it was the reverse. You know, the halakha was you could speak and not write down. And then the Haggadah you can write down what you couldn't speak. So they had perverted and made an oral and written law out of the Old Testament Torah, which is known as their Targum or their Talmud or their. This is what we were warned of this. They already did this at the time. This is why they changed all these celebrations like the water baptism, which is not by water but by blood, pitch, blood, stain or die. That is it, and it have to be completely overcome. But they changed all these laws, and like if there was something in the field, you could go in there and glean, and but you couldn't take out with you. That was, you could do that. All the outer portions of the field were supposed to be left for the poor, and even if something had fallen off the back of a cart, it was supposed to be left on the field, not put up. These Pharisees that came in and made their big boy club and got all of this through taxes, and that's just what they've modern done today. And so people won't stand against this, and that's why they're not disciples. They're not bearing that, under this covenant, we're not supposed to use violence. We can use our mouth, our right of redress grievances, as you've seen even in my case that's happened. But, the law is going to do whatever they want in this modern day test. And if I suffer, then Father will cover me. I don't seek vengeance off anything that's happened in my case. People, they're going to have to answer to the Father. If they get away with in this lifetime, Father will have at the great and dreadful day of the Lord, which is the final trump. There's one judgment. So most people are very unaware how this works. They think dead people go to the sky. They think heavens are in the sky. And they think God's in the sky. And they think Earth's below their feet. Earth is a ruled, and there's no such thing as a planet. And, there's all these modern day twisted, and he told us I've already given you the word is froward. And remember, they like Old Testament, these women, halakha ritual, you're supposed to go release your bride after she committed a physical act. They had made laws where they're, these women were hadn't even committed a formal act of adultery, and they were put out there on the streets. They were not being able to be what was that? Must have had a little bit of water coming out. It's really cold last night. It's starting to warm up in here. But they weren't being able to be remarried because they made up these perverted laws, and they were supposed to be given the bill of divorce when they entered into a contract. This is why people that actually study the scripture realize how important it is on what the Hamashiach did when they nailed him to a tree, or what was known as a stake. They staked him or nailed him to that tree, and it, people they think of crosses, and that's not what they did to the Hamashiach. And because it was a very formal thing about he always declares two witnesses, as those two thieves were next to him, when we know the one, what he said to him, you will be my father, because he didn't falter in faith. He knew who he was. And obviously we've all been there, like Peter. It's kind of that same formality, but the contract is the two witnesses where we're supposed to have. And as a bill of marriage, when you went to marry in the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about this formal contract of marriage. That's why Father had sent two. Most people don't understand. I don't hear any teachers other than Brother Jim Brown giving you this lesson that, there was a certain formality, the Old Testament, where you had to enter into this contract with a woman. It had to be declared into a public place and nailed to a tree, and you had to declare the two witnesses. And then again, he had come back because he'd said that, you've literally broken and froward and changed this, froward means pervert, to my Father's law, the Torah, the Old Testament, that these women have not even committed a formal act of adultery, like in a physical sense. That's why he said right there, the Hamashiach right there started making this New Testament change. He says, if you covet, which means like David coveted Bathsheba with his riches, if you use if you don't have to commit the formal act, that is adultery. And adultery is to cheat and to go against in opposition, like Satan, the adversary to the agape of the Torah or the law. He told him that you frowarded my Father's agape. But he says these women can't even be legally remarried, because you have to go back to that public place and nail a bill of divorce. And you haven't even done that. So they can't even be legally remarried, and they're literally, having to sell, or, to sell their bodies, whore their bodies to feed themselves. And he went off on them. That's why he had made that that went from a physical, just like, if you even, and think of it, you don't even have to be physical. You want to make like that, well, then that is adultery. If you want to change the laws, we're going to make it to where he goes into this New Testament that, it could be a spiritual cheating, and not, but in the Old Testament, what he was making such a big deal about is he said, that you're supposed to give her half of what you own under that Old Testament as well. And people don't know that. I've never heard anybody teach that. Put a 1 in the chat. Have you ever heard anybody teach? Hold on 1 second, Michael. That's not very hard to figure out. If you knew if it's gospel, it's inside you. You go back to spirit. You're not coming back to flesh under this new covenant we made with, he's going to redeem his bride and bring it back. I go to where my Father's house is at. It's a place of it's a many rooms. It's a mansion, many rooms. And where my Father's at, I will be. Remember, he said, seated at his right hand. But he said he would stand up and he would come back and he would crush the head of the serpent. Remember, the serpent is the one in the garden, Leviathan, that, remember, obviously because of fornication, again, cheating and adultery, the same thing I'm bringing up with you in the book of Deuteronomy about. It talks about how a man and a woman are yoked, and Paul's writings is in Colossians, Corinthians. But when Shiloh came back, he was going, and he went up to the Pharisees and he was explaining to them that you have perverted, and you made your Talmud and your Targum, your Halakha, your Gada. You took my father's Torah, Old Testament, and in Deuteronomy it says that, we are supposed to, when we yoke with somebody, it's done at a public place. We nail this bill of marriage to a tree, and we have 2 witnesses declare this is a formal marriage between, this wasn't done in a church. This was done in a public place, so they could bear 2 witnesses that they were bound by Father's law. He is the tie that binds. Under the Old Testament Torah, the book of, remember, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy were the law. And in the book of Deuteronomy are the formal laws of marriage and how we are to yoke and what we are to do under Old Testament. But most people don't have the time to study this. And I've given, always thank you, Father, for the abundance of time to be able to study this cultures, customs, really, all these, and get away from just my mind, obviously when I was very young was always drawn to this, and then I overdid it. But learning how to back down and study one word at a time. With, again, Brother Jim Brown has been on the radio, television, and now on Grace and Truth on the internet and here on YouTube. He can really get you to learn. It's what his teachings were helped me to slow down, because you mess up one jot, as he said, or tittle, you're an antichrist. You're a Satan. You're going to hell. The word that you better be standing up. Old Testament, one sin was death. Whether veno or mortal, you add one jot death, one tittle death, one yod. That's even a letter. He'll blot your name out. He said, you're going to hell. He's not some easy Jesus, sit down Sunday. You don't want to sub with vipers. You want to sub with people who have studied, and be careful, because a lot will come in my performing. You got to be careful. They like to mirror, but you're not going to find the gospel in many places, anywhere, because it's many are called, but few are chosen. So I can show you the narrow way, because it's in the word aletheia, truth, the studying Old Testament Hebrew, and speak a little bit in Greek. I speak the gospel in these things. Can't speak like Brother Jim could fluently speak in these both languages, but that's why I send people over there, because he helped me to slow down. I wanted it all. I wanted I was reading all the stuff that was outside of the gospel, the ones that rejected texts, that were because they lacked definition, that didn't go into the canonization process, which are very little tiny scraps of gospel. The gospel is contained in the 66 books that were canonized during the 12th century, so that you can literally take a lexicon and define, and every word in there is definable by definition. He said, I am the word aletheia, truth. That's a Greek word, truth. I am the hados. I am the narrow way. So you need to narrow off the definitions and translations of the world and study in Old Testament Hebrew, study in New Testament Greek, and start understanding that they had made perversions to the Old Testament Torah in their new, which was Targum. It had been, over 40 years they'd wandered in the desert, right? Because they wanted a place to study. All that temple was destroyed. Remember, no stones left upon another. That was Christ's literal, prophecy of the destruction of the physical temple and the physical rituals, and that Father had given them the synagogues, right? And the rabbis, who at the time of Christ became the Pharisees, and those who still could speak the old Torah Testament out of the old would be more of a scribe or a Sadducee. And I know that they probably accused me of the day to be like Paul, was a Pharisee of a Sadducee, because I still have understanding this Old Testament Hebrew, and I don't speak, again, fluent Hebrew, but I speak the gospel in Hebrew. I speak the New Testament Greek and gospel in Greek, because Father, that's what he wrote remember, it's an old Jewish book. Anything you wanted to find in this New Testament can be found and should mirror the Old Testament, or he said, throw it out. So I'm trying to tell you, he said, I am the Hados, which means to narrow. You got to get rid of your translation. You got to get rid of your own definitions. He said, do not do this, but that's what the world likes to do. They like to make their own version. He says, many will come in my Agape, Torah, name, authority, and say they are Christ, and they'll be deceived. So people are all deceived by, you can put every flavor of the rainbow on any religion, and they're all vain. There's no gospel in them. You'll know them by their fruit. Do not judge them by their cover. They all have different houses made by hands. And he said he doesn't dwell the most. I'm not under the laws of test. I get tattoos, right? It's not what goes in a man or a woman. The Most High, that means the Most High God, like in your JPEG, and does not dwell in temples made by hands. He's written on the hearts of the bride. See, this testament that he made, that's why he said, if you covet another man's wife, to the Pharisees, that is adultery. So, that's because that means strange happening. No, there's no coming back to this. Like I said, there's one judgment. People. Do you know what? And I don't want to go off on all of it, but taking anything away from your experience, or Michael, but you know what the placebo effect is? You know what the placebo effect is? People can manifest. People are going to see things. This is what Father warns us about. Idolatry and imagery. It's in His Word. You don't think you can't? You can speak a lot of change just in frequency. Thanks coming in, Marissa. People can see things that are not there, that you're not seeing, but in their eyes, they have manifested by placebo. And Father is the word Hokadesh, and that's the word spirit, and that is the word ghost. But people will swear they see ghosts. Whatever. Just people are they think there's aliens and they live on a planet, and that there's a devil, which is the word a liar or a deceiver, distributor of fortunes, like a fortune teller, that that people could be ventriloquists back in time, and you pay them 5 shekels or something, and they could blow a goat skin up and oh, Marissa, this is great, grandma, and pick your lottery numbers are 10, 13, and 79, whatever. And hocus pocus, and a Celtic demon is a fairy. An Arab demon is a genie. Now we can pay me, and I'll give you wishes, right? All this fortune telling. This is deception. Rub my crystal ball and tell you fortunes. This is all hocus pocus. This is not scriptural, aligned with the scripture, and this has been done. It's fortune telling. And remember, they used to have a burnt offering on December 25th after having an orgy for a whole week, where they marinated a man with beasts, sex with animals. This your bestiality, born in a manger on December 20th birth, ritual of Jesus. And they would eat that masse, is the eating of the human flesh of man, and they would masse eat him. And you can still go to the mass, the Catholic mass today on Sunday, right, today, and they're doing these same things, right? Christ is means anointed in oil, and it's not ever written in the text, but Christ's Mass is the same birth of this week ritual, which was an orgy, Roman orgy that they'd celebrated for thousands of years under what was known as the Feast of the Yule, or the Saturnalia, or the Sacrament of the Mass. That is the Mass that they do today, eat my body and drink my blood. That is cannibalism, where they drank blood and they had beasts with man, sex with women, sex with, man on man, man on beast, beast on woman, and they'd marinate a man for 1 week and they'd eat him on December 25th to their sun god Apollyon, the one Trump has his house decorated with it. Get over it, you know. They say that Mandela effect, the Mandela affected that movie, James. The Mandela affected it, like forgive us our, debts because of the Jubilee cycle, as we forgive us our debtors, which at the Shemitah 7 cycle of 7 was 49 on the 50th year. There was debt forgiveness. Now it says forgive us our, what? No, it doesn't say forgive us our debt. It says forgive us and lead us not with trespasses. And, that's an old, trespass is like a law, Old Testament. So now they're get away from this because they don't want you to have this Jubilee cycle of forgiveness of the, because Father doesn't like fee. He doesn't like this buildup of riches. That's pride. And that's why he's take all this was taken away from us. So, I'm trying to speak this as much as I can. People love to, they think that Chewbacca had, a threesome with Anakin Spacewalker, and they had Wookiee with an Ewok, and now we got big feet walking this rock. Where's their big feet? Where's it say there's big feet in Scripture? You take your 2 big feet out of here, AC/DC, and take your big balls too. Remember, she's got the biggest balls of them all too, so she can get out of here too. I don't care. I'll sup with no vipers. So, who told you were naked? Remember in the garden. Careful who you lay with. Don't cheat on Father's agape. So, but remember, one of the strongest effects on this rock is the placebo effect. So you can manifest many things into this, idolatry. Your eyes can fool you. That's the word. Distributor fortunes or lies to your eyes. That is the word idolatry, demon. Apologize, we had some interruption out here in the desert, but so yeah, okay, well, no, cool. They do that too. They like to cause deception by doing that. Febreze or kit-cat or no cat, no kit, no dash, no, come on. It's all deception. It's throughout. He warns us of that. So don't do it when it comes to the Scripture. You can do it whatever else you want, but remember, that's what the word, devil is the word distributor fortunes or lies, deceiver, and he is that. Leviathan is deceiver. He, by deception, he wants this, and we're warned of it. So careful what you eat. Don't one bad apple upsets the whole apple cart. So little leaven the whole lump. And Father doesn't want us to sup with vipers or cast our pearls. So if you've been given abundance, been drawn to the gospel, hallelujah, because Father chooses that. We don't get to choose that, brothers and sisters. It's not something that that we Father said, if I didn't call out to the hearts to seek after me, and he is the word in flesh, he said, before Abraham was I am, not one of us would. It won't. We just, it's Father makes us do it, and we don't have any choice in the matter. And we just get put through more and more hell because of it. And people don't want it. They love the world has gone pretty much mad with this, back to the time of Rome, same thing. The children are seeing adult things, and I don't agree with that. So too much of this, Kill Bill wide, Pizza Gates, broad is the way that's the Broadway Pizza Gate is what it is. I don't mean to go there, but let's just say it, the Billary and all the foundations and all their, mockery of our system of, I'm a constitutionalist, and seeing what they've done to this country since the founding writers, actually outlawed, and you would be fined and thrown in jail if you celebrated what is known as Christmas in this country. It was all founded off of that. If you actually pay attention to your history, not just what you listen to what people say or hear on YouTube or some blog or whatever. Careful, even what you read in text, you better be reading it in the original languages they were written in at the time, and study cultures, customs, maps. Things are not, names aren't just changed to protect the innocent. Normally they wipe out history every time they recreate it. These people who have been, reigning over this rock for thousands of years are good at doing this. So they're doing it again. They're erasing and rewriting history right now. So you're going to go into the super tech world, whether you like it or not. Everything will be digitally tokenized, blockchain, credit scored communism. Get ready, the dragon. You know, it's here. It's rearing its head. You know, it's bringing the fire. So that's what it does. It's a refiner's fire. But what fire trials are you being put through? You know, so I hope you're standing up because of the ones that he stood for, perversion of his father's agape, his Old Testament. Remember, you forwarded my father's agape, he said, because they had changed that law of the Old Testament. And these women were not even being given half of what you know, uh, the ownership of the property distribution. That doesn't come from, out of nowhere when she wants half. That's an Old Testament thing. A man was to give the woman half. That's why Christ was so he was really up in arms about that they were literally having to whore their bodies, and they were not even able to be legally remarried, and by that bill of divorce did not being given to them, so there was no way they were, and that's perverted everything. So Father doesn't like when we pervert his law under this testament. We're not it's a spiritual bride, so there's not a physical, although we might walk in physical and pay in price in physical. That's not, he covers us for standing up, like all the disciples, they went and shared the gospel. Even Paul, remember, he was a Pharisee. He went into the churches. He had the get up, the garb, and he went in there and shared the gospel. Remember, they hated that old man and stoned him and threw him off a precipice, backwards off a cliff, and I don't know, probably broke his back and a bunch. And then they came and stoned him with big, huge, near bowling ball size, 20 kilogram, and he still got up. I don't know how the old man did it, but through Father's, he's the way maker. He can make a way when there's no way in hell, and he always does. So it's not a concept. There's no concept. That's how it happened. In the beginning was the Word. Remember, it was all created with the Word. So there's no see in vibration. It's actually pretty elementary. We'll just go study those subject I gave you right there, and it should be quite how they can move a building with frequency. And there's megalithic structures on this rock using such metals as copper and silver and gold, and there's a lot of things that are possible that are coming. Very Tartaria is if you think this is the first time we've had electricity, you take copper and put it around a magnet and spin it, you make a toroidal field. He spoke all this into existence. It's electric, baby. You're not, there's no gods in the sky. There's nothing up and above your head. Father's come. He's the dynamo that makes this firmament above ourselves, do what we see when we walk this rock, So people love to play the word salad with the world. So, if you've been part of this ministry for years, that's kind of my thing. I work on my body that talks about all these markers that are left in the firmament, but there's which Enoch, there's two different Enochs, but there's no concept. Like I said, think about it. It's just, it's like math, it's all math to me. So that's how I think about it. Most people, and I don't, like I said, I like science, and I love the scientific method, and always, disputing the known, questioning thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But remember, he tells us, lovers of truth. You go after, you try to find everything. Most of these things be revealed to us after, we pass on this. You need to focus on the gospel. And I'm not saying if you can share the gospel that you can't start studying outside of the gospel. I have all the books. I'm all sitting here next to me. I have libraries of this stuff, but I only care about the gospel now, because that's what we need to do, is go out and share that agape under this New Testament, Romans, the ones that are conforming to what he did when he was here. And that's going out and pointing out perversion of this, law as they had done at the time of Rome and Christ and before, and they're doing it again. And we're supposed to be the ones that are here to be the disciples and bear witness to, what the true gospel is. It's the ellipsis. It's through tribulation, like Paul. That's what he shared. Come out of her. That's a threat when that doesn't put money in baskets for churches, when they've got people who are telling us that the body is a temple. You know, the Most High doesn't dwell in temples made by hands. Think about how much of a threat that was to the Pharisees and their synagogues at the time. That doesn't get tithes and money put in baskets. You know, like it says in the book of Malachi, if you find a man that's feeding you the meat, give him 10% of your earnings. You know, under that Old Testament tithe, and they run that tithe here at part of this ministry is time. You know, so we did get me demonetized while I went to jail, guys. I don't know how that happened, but one of the videos up got the channel demonetized, so it is what it is. Father does what he wants. He creates everything not written, so whoever did it, Father created them to push the man's hand, or woman, whoever, you know. So, yep. Thank you, Father, for knowing that, you know, timing. Good stuff. Much love, Sister Mercy. Appreciate that. So, yeah, that's, you know, we can't get it back. Once you spend it here, there's no getting it back. That's one thing. Time doesn't, you know, you can't re-spend time. You can't catch up with time. It's going like, you know, this ain't no Back to the Future. Well, we do back and forth with words in here, but no, seriously, once it's, hopefully it's well spent here, you know, people, where do you put your treasure? You know, time is valuable to me, more valuable than, you know, all the gold and silver. So, but, I feel so blessed just to have time to share the gospel. I mean, look at the tens of thousands of hours been sharing the gospel through the ministry through the years. So it's what an abundance Father gave us. We're not be less because we got more. We got bounty. You know, some people have none. They got to rob all their time just to barely get into their mortgage and credit cards and car payments and kid payments and all that. They're just robbed by, you know, debt beats them down, and they don't have time to ever sup of the gospel, and they don't take the time. So, what an abundance this ministry has been to everybody that's had a hearing ear, and all my time is not in vain here. So I thank Father for, you know, an ability to do this for 12 years. So, you know, Marissa, I was thinking about that a little bit today because, you know, think about it. It is at an all-time high, but where is the top on precious metals? So as I look at it, you know, it's never wrong to take profit, ever wrong to take profit. I wish I had all the silver and gold that I didn't get taken from me over and over. I would be very wealthy. I could put this property on the grid. I could have, you know, just, it would be, but that's not what Father wanted me. He likes me to struggle. So I just, you know, do what I do. But anyways, let's remind ourselves it's only ever 2 times gone to $50. Let's just go through the history. It's a great question because I like, you know, like I said, I like talking precious metals. I don't have, you know, a bunch. So I went to town yesterday and got some, though, a little bit, just, you know, a couple little pieces, like I said. But, you know, I need to try to focus on keeping this ministry. I potentially have, you know, another attorney to hire in this case, and, you know, I'm hoping the civil, I'm not going to have to pay anything. There'll be quite a bit of income, which I don't want, will come from that, those lawsuits. So I don't know how long they'll take to settle and finish, but I'm not concerned about that at this point. I'm back to the question. What you're saying is that we need to look in history that it's been $50, you know, once in 1984, and then once, you know, again around 2010 or 12 or what's around there, where it on it, and now we're seeing it again, and now it's come past. It's come past the $50 mark to 80, which if I just gave you mine, and I won't give you any financial advice, you just can just write it down and take notes. I think $80 is a steal for silver. I think it's worth just as much as gold and silver, or as gold. They valued it 1 to 1. I don't have some kind of picking some thought out of my head. At the time of Christ, a talent of gold was worth a talent of silver. You know, they were 1 to 1. The ratio was 1 to 1. So I'm not picking something out of my, gee, Rocky, let me pull a rabbit out of my, you know, left cheek here, or whatever, you know, or out of my hat, you know. This is historically in the 12th century. This ratio has been about 10, you know, the God's ratio, the golden ratio is normally gold to silver is, you know, 7, 8 to 1 that it's taken out of the ground. It's always generally been that throughout historical time and history. Okay, so that's what I call God's ratio between the two. I've been telling you to pay attention to ratio on this channel. I have a Silver's Like Gold channel. I was talking about this back in 10, 12 years ago on Truth Bible Television. So it's not new news. It was, silver was about 12, 13, 14 bucks now. So, and got a lot of hell through all the years, but glad that I spent my time. It's kind of crazy that everybody always takes my metal, although I've given away quite a bit of time too, just giving the right person, I feel, because I always know that sometimes it just takes that one where somebody will give them the what I call is the silver bug, they get it and they just, because it's not gold, you don't want to have, it takes a lot of money to yeah. So however you choose to take any of this, I don't want to give any financial advice, but I'll tell you what I see. And it doesn't mean I'm giving any prophecy on how, to foresee prophecy. I'm not, a prophet is the word teacher, and I'm not trying to, I'll give you the understanding of watching this and been in this precious metals market for, decades, and have channels to support my work and whatever. You go back and look. I did say, I called for $100 silver before the end of the year, and we might just hit it if they keep doing this. So that's when we go up. That if you look at what happened the other day, that was a historical event where it was called a Sigma 5 event, where like you have a 3.8% chance of getting hit by lightning. I mean, that the rarity. So what we saw the other day was historical. Gold is up at an all-time high. It closed out at $4,533. Silver is up, I think, 160% on the year. Most number one performing asset on this rock right now, outperforming obviously stock market, Bitcoin, all the cryptocurrencies, even gold. Gold led this market out. So, it's the ratio. So now the ratio is generally throughout history, when you had a silver quarter, like a 1964 or older were silver, that 90%, what's known as constitutional silver or junk silver, whatever, it's minted quarters that were, is now $13 and about $14 for a nickel, or excuse me, for a quarter. That quarter, again, used to buy a gallon of gas. Ratio has gone haywire. I was trying to tell people that the other day as I saw silver lead out. But again, my point is that this older, silver, again, the ratio was 15-1 when it was in our coinage. Silver is the first money in Scripture. It is the silver dinar that's in the Old Testament that we see. So silver is money, and actually they use it as means. They sold Christ for 30 pieces of silver, remember? So silver is something that has a ratio historically, and that's what I pay attention to, because I think the price of silver is irrelevant. If you don't hold it, you won't own it. And I'm not saying now to go buy any silver at $80, because it's 79 plus a premium, so it could be a little bit more to have the physical metal, not just the paper contract. But I think it's a good price at this rate because of it has more uses than gold. So I think they could be valued 1-to-1. So silver has a long way to go. It could come right back down, and I wouldn't care if I bought silver at $100 now. I'm making my thing saying silver under $100 is cheap to me, just because it's used in so many things. You can make your own decision on that. I'll tell you how I see it, and you watch. I normally can hit some of these things because I've paid attention to these cycles for, Yuga cycles are much longer. These are tens of thousands, 100,000, Kali Yuga cycles, some of these things. There's Fibonacci. It's already broken out of what is known as its all-time high. So there is no limit in silver right now, just like gold has done the same thing. We could see, and if they wanted to, they can smash it back down with a bunch of paper contracts, because it's the paper price of silver is $80. It's not $80 for silver, or $79.24 is what it closed out on Friday. Go look online. You want to buy a silver bullion round, it's $86 to buy 1 to 20. You want to hold it. It's like if you want to hold oil barrels. Nate did that analogy the other night on Canadian Prepper. If you want, that was a good way to think about it. If you want to buy oil and you got to get the oil and hold it in the barrels, and you want that oil and you got to hold it, that's the paper price of oil. But if you want the physical oil, there's going to be more of a premium to buy it. And so that's kind of like how precious metal works. If you want to hold this asset in your hand, you're going to have to pay more to actually have it. So the paper price is the 79 bid price. To hold these things on gold, there's a premium over the top too. So it's not just $4,500. It's about $4,700 to buy an ounce of gold right now. So I think that we can we've entered in what is known as a bull cycle, where bull is up and bear is down. This could be a long bull cycle. I don't like when things go straight up, because that's not how markets work. That's a bad thing, because it's like taking a ball underwater. The further you take it down, the higher it's going to come out. So the higher you take it up, the faster it's going to come crashing down. You want to see it like gold throughout history is nice and stair-stepped its way, has always continued to gain value. Silver goes behind it, but it thrashes around. Both of these metals have been suppressed. Go look into GATA, and some of the people who've gone into the manipulation of these metals have been going on for quite some time. They don't care, because they're the money printers. Let's think about it this way. If they get you to take it out of your coffers because it gets too cheap and you panic and you sell it to them, they put it back in their coffer, they're safe. It goes up, they're still printing the money. They get it, oh my God, honey, and there's never wrong to take profit. Then don't ever sell your whole stack. I'm not giving any advice. Then they still get it back, brothers, sisters. So they don't care when they're the money printers at this point. So this is probably what we're seeing here. I think this actually is, anytime we see something like this in history, brothers, sisters, it normally leads with a pretty large event, which I don't want to see either. If you'll think what I'm saying, if you look back in history, anytime we've seen moves in these type of markets, when we see these sigma type events, there has to be a correction. So I would like to see a correction back to about 75. I don't care if they pull it back to 50, it'll slingshot right back up. I know that. That's right. It's just a store of value. That's why kings and queens put it away for their children, because they know it would buy the same thing. Let me give you a little historical lesson. Since I don't own any gold, but let's take a piece of silver out here and we'll look at a piece of silver. Okay. If this was a piece of gold, and they did value at the time of Rome, gold and silver 1-to-1. So let's say this is gold. Okay. We've done this analogy. If you got an ear to hear, listen to this. You can teach this to other people. It's a great way to kind of just teach people about precious metals. They have gold buffaloes. I've never had a gold buffalo. But this gold, if we were using it in the time of Rome, would buy you the finest toga, because they wore togas, and I don't know what the thread count, like it was your bed sheets or how many thread count that was, but I'm sure those were some nice thick, like bar cloth type, really nice, sash, your rope, and it would buy, you could take your lady to dinner, buy her a bottle of wine and a nice steak dinner for 1 ounce of gold. Every day you put Rome, 1 ounce of gold, check or something. So I know you heard what I'm saying. Let's spark the algorithm a little bit in the chat here. You understand what I'm saying? 1 ounce of gold would buy you a toga, the finest toga money could buy, a nice steak dinner, and a bottle of wine for your lady in Rome. Put Rome or gold, 1 ounce, Rome. So I know you hear what I'm saying. Because what I'm trying to explain to you is that this is what people rush to. It's a store of value. Like in 1913, a dollar would buy you $1 worth of purchasing power, $1. Now, since then, it's lost about 99% of its purchasing power. So it's basically worth 1 penny. What it would buy you back in 1913, you can only buy a penny's worth. Or you understand purchasing power? What I'm saying by purchasing power? Gold and silver, watch, this won't lose its purchasing power. Silver a little different, but let's call it gold. So if we come anytime throughout history, and I'm more of a guy, if we can go throughout, it's not going to change. But if you come into, let's say, this 17 or 1800s, like I like this old style, like I like, does anybody know what the price of gold was back in 1800s? What it was for an ounce of gold? Yeah, that's what currency does. It just inflation is an expansion of the currency. currency is not, this isn't currency, this is money. So 1 gold ounce, in the 1800s, right? It was holding, remember, for a while it stayed the same. It was around $3, and then it went bam, it shot up to 20, and then they did their, in 1900 they did their, so $20 back then, would buy you the finest suit. You could have hand tailored, or a lady could have a dress. Yep. $20 an ounce. So that would buy you the finest suit. I mean, zoot suit if you wanted it, right? You could buy the finest suit. You could take your lady out and have a nice steak dinner and buy a bottle of wine for $20, right? $20. Okay. So what is an ounce of gold today? What's an ounce of gold today? I tell you, it closed at 45.33, an all-time high the other day. So to buy an ounce of gold, a physical ounce of gold, it's going to cost you about $4,800 US dollars, which is cheap compared to some other places like Canada. And if I'm not mistaken, brothers and sisters, that will buy you, right? So we understand it happened in the 1800s, 1800s. Let's slow down 1 second, right? So we got it in Rome. It would buy you a suit. And in the 1800s, a steak dinner and a bottle of wine in the 1800s, and it's $4,533 plus a premium. So you're looking at probably $4,700 by Kevin and I. We went to the pawn shop the other day, and there was a piece of gold in there. They wanted $4,700 for a Liberty, $4,799, so $4,800. If I'm not mistaken, that will buy you a nice Armani. Is that not one of the nicer suits on the market? An Armani suit, a nice steak dinner, and a bottle of wine for your lady. See, that 1 gold ounce, it's the same gold ounce it was. It's still that gold ounce today because you could have it back then. All the paper is gone to zero. I don't care. There might be numismatic because they're collectible, but they're not going to have that piece in Rome, that gold piece you spent in the 1800s, and that gold piece today will buy you that Armani suit, a steak dinner, and a bottle of wine. See, it doesn't lose its power. This is why kings and queens put it up. Generational wealth is what it's called. To have generational wealth. If you can hold it and not spend it, it's never wrong to pull profit, but this is how they knew they could give something to their future generations that wouldn't lose its purchasing power. So stop thinking about price. Price is irrelevant. If you don't have this in your hands and don't have, first water, power, ways to power, beans and rice and storable food, then please stay out of these markets. But, if you could put this away and not spend it and decided to take profit, you don't want to keep it forever, then you're never going to reap the benefits of it. You do have to, point in time, take from your, right. If you can keep it, nobody will don't tell anybody where it's at. They probably won't take it from you. That's been my problem. But here's what I'm saying is this is a safe haven asset that no matter what throughout history, when the system collapses, people always rush to gold and silver because it doesn't lose its purchasing power. So as things get more expensive, they're printing $1 trillion every 100 days. $80 silver to me seems very under $100 is, I said $50, anything under $50, I've always said on this stream is fire sale prices because it's been 50 before. Once it went off, I told you that what could happen. There is no limit because there is no top now. Same thing with gold. And if, gold's starting to go up, it's the ratio is changing. Stop thinking about price. Look at the ratio now. Forget about price for a minute. Let's go back to the time of Rome as 1-to-1. God's ratio is 8-to-1 out of the ground, 8-to-1. Every 1 ounce of gold, they pull up 8 ounces of silver with it. It's refined. It's been 15-to-1 when it's been in a quarter or a 50-cent piece or a dime. That was 15-to-1. The ratio has come out as far as during the COVID past 100, 125. It's been teetering at about 80-to-90 now over the last couple of years. Even though the prices change, that ratio stayed the same. It's been out to 100, come back. We just seen the other day when silver moved up 147 percent or something, whatever, with a $7.43 gain in one day. That ratio closed down to 57, brothers and sisters. That's a big close in the ratio. So there's been historical moves that I don't know if any of these other people on YouTube or bloggers are talking about this, but that is what I pay attention to. I don't care what the price is. Price is irrelevant at this point. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. You know what I'm saying? That's fine, though. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's good. That's okay. Rug, hey, because hopefully some of them aren't selling their whole stack and they're taking profits. That's not wrong. Go do something. Move into something else and go live a little bit, and enjoy the taking profits. A lot of them brought it in at, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 13. I always had channels on YouTube 12 years ago telling you to buy silver at 12 or 13 and 14 bucks because I thought it was, it'd been 50 before. And we see it was just way out of whack on a paper price. It's a reverse market. You're buying a paper price, not the actual metal. So you probably know that, and it's good to see. Hopefully there's not enough of it. There's not enough. Photovoltaics, all this new tech, they got, this is all going to consume. Silver's consume. Unlike gold, 98 plus percent of the gold is, you might have some of Cleopatra's earring or necklace that you're wearing today or that's been coined because they recycle it. Silver and copper, they just been throwing into the landfills, hint, hint, e-waste. So they made silver and copper strategic metal. They're going to start making sure. There's been a deficit over the last 6 years. It came up during the COVID a little bit, but there we go. And that's starting to happen too, because there are silver shops right now that are closing up that don't want it. And they're not paying these $80 prices for it. So don't think silver's worth $80 right now. Think it's worth $300 and hold on to it. Or if you got in at the right time, because anybody who's diversified, brothers, sisters, like what's showing up here, thanks, Rug, for bringing up some good points, is that the markets catch up, brothers. It's supply and demand, whether you understand it. Right now is the end of this year, and they're covering shorts. This is where we're seeing a true short squeeze. I don't care what anybody says right now. But I want to tell you, there's less and less metal. We have scraped most of it. And if we're going to go 2.5 ounces, in photovoltaics and they're going to start recycling too, will bring on more demand too online because the price. So we need some correction in the market. The market's hot. It's called fear of missing out sometimes when markets do this. 80% of the gains are made in the last 20% of most markets, brothers and sisters, because people get in when it's way late. There's a blow off top, or what's known as a melt up. I don't think that's what we're seeing here. Look at the past cycles, though. Silver's been this high before. Normally, when we see economic crashes, silver and gold will go down because the demand is not there. People are need to pay bills, and they start selling out. Kind of like what Rug, brings up. There's a lot going into but there's a big demand. They're covering a lot on China's. Remember, just made in January. They're not shipping any more metals out with tracking it, and there's a shakeup in this market. But I do want to explain to you, I'm not giving any economic advice, that we have kind of scraped off most of the silver, and silver will become, because there is a deficit for an industry. Nobody's buying silver on the streets, brothers and sisters. Nobody's buying silver. These are the big whales buying right now. These are the big the big shaker is industry. Okay, it's like 75+%. The other is, investment and jewelry, and you got to know the silver market right now. People can skew some of these numbers and shy people away from a lot of this really quick. So they've made this market the way it is, brothers and sisters. But this commodity exchange and now the Shanghai Gold Exchange, there's a lot of shakeup in these things that have been happening. And, with Basel III making gold, a tier 1 asset, this is changing the game. This is all a great time to see, because some of us have been in this market for decades and see the market sit stale and suppressed with GATA and everybody trying to show through JP Chase how they had actually got caught spoofing these markets and doing some price suppression, and then were allowed custodial right back over the markets again. It's good to see that it's going up and people are taking some profit right now. And if they had some good stacks and going out and buying what they wanted, they always wanted that hot rod or that car. Well, first, James, you want to look through. There are reputable dealers online that you can buy from. Probably one of the best way right now is through online. Stay away. There's a lot of I have actors in the game. I only have bought from Atmex, SD Bullion, JM Bullion, Money Metals Exchange, Monument Metals. There's, go with those. Those are online. Stay away from eBay. some of these other places, APMEX has never sold anything that's not that they're an online. You need to go to your local coin shop though, because if you watch, where are you going to sell your silver? That's all right though, right? That's all right. You took profit. There's nothing wrong with that though, man. I hope you got something. That's what I'm saying. It's not wrong. Okay, APMEX is the largest online bullion dealer on this rock. Okay, I'm a veteran. I signed up. I got some JM bullion, gave me discounts. So I get their, if you know anybody's a veteran, get those discounts. If they're a veteran, go through JM because they'll give you the ability to get at their cheapest price, like you're buying 500 instead of buying just 1 to 20. There is SD, JM, at APMEX, APMEX, Money Metals Exchange, and Monument Metals are the ones that I've ever bought from. I haven't bought from anybody else. Be careful. There's a lot of ones out there that are no good now. You know, it's just be very cautious. Now you need to go to your LCS. You're in San Diego. You got some ability to go to what is called, write that please down, LCS. And what that means is your local coin shop. God forbid you don't ever want to sell it. You want to trade that for a boat, you know, a horse. The idea is never to trade it back for dollars, but you know, I've had to bail my son out of jail, you know, or whatever, you know, bail myself out or whatever, but you know, it's liquid and you can get it. I've had to sit on land. I've had to sit on vehicles. I've had to sit on things. This you can get a check for. It might not be the price you want. You might lose your premium. This is going to retain some value. You have enough of it, you're wealthy. Okay, but just hear me out. I'm not giving any, but look, you got to go to your local coin shop because eventually your pawn shop is not going to give you what your local coin shop was, and you might have some rarity, something that's special. It doesn't matter. I don't collect special coins, but you need to have a way to sell this back if you need to, God forbid, and that's where you're going to get your best price from. Do you understand? Selling it back. Okay, thanks for coming in. Your LCS, you need to build a relationship with them because then they can order, they can freeze pricing, they can do things that not on the nice thing, and you go right there and you get it in your hands that day. You can get some online. They did during the COVID. You couldn't order this stuff for weeks out, and then the shipping was, that could happen right now. And right now, nobody's buying this, guys. The average person is not buying right now. It's expensive out there. Just trying to mask this whole economy is okay because cheap gas is not. Everything else is expensive and going up. Car insurance, you know, food, you know, phone bills, everything else is going up. I don't want to hear it. But anyway, so look, you need to build a relationship because you need to be able to sell it one day, correct? Or hopefully if you don't, you'll trade it. And by then, that's what I would ever planned on doing with mine was to make it trade. I wanted to buy this land with silver like they bought, you know, the Louisiana Purchase, right? So whatever, it didn't work out like I thought, but it is. So my point is that if you'll go to some of these places that have a reputation, LCSs don't sell fake coins. They test everything now. They'll literally test it all. So that's very hard to get a fake. And with the price going up, China is, I think that's what they're trying to do by saying they're not going to pump out silver, guys. China is the biggest, you know, they make more fake coins than anywhere else on this rock. So you got to be very careful too. That's why I like the idea of buying constitutional silver that are quarters and dimes, that they're not minting any more quarters that are 64. There are some proof coins, but as a whole, you know, they don't make more of those. They make a lot of these, you know, bullion coins. This is a silver buffalo, right? Which is my favorite because it's something people are familiar with. And generally don't buy any bullion unless it doesn't, you know, unless it says 999 fine silver. I stay away from buying any kind of coins that don't have that on their label, you know, because there are some coins out there, but be very cautious of that, you know. Even if they're a little cheaper, you want something that people will recognize. And that's why they always kind of do the head and eagle. Yeah, so we got to be careful. You know, as silver creeps up, they're going to start producing more fakes. I even think maybe, you know, when I was telling you guys to buy, Marissa has been here, a quarter was $5 for sure. I was telling Marissa to buy nickels. She's been here for a long time. So and under $4 and $5, and a dime was $2 because Kevin and I were talking about $2 tacos in Ecuador. That quarter right now is $14 for that same silver quarter. $14 for that same silver quarter. So, I bought some dimes the other day because they only have mercury dimes, but I got some. So a dime is now a dime, a silver dime, to that be a mercury dime is now $5. It's about $6, guys, for a dime. $6 for a dime. $6 for a dime. Remember $2 tacos in Ecuador, and now they're $6. $6. And see, I have a quarter up here somewhere. Where's the quarter? Oh, quarter. And a quarter is $14. This quarter is $14. $14 for this quarter, for this silver quarter. Just trying to tell you, $5 burritos, and now they're $14. Yeah, that's going to come online when the prices of these metals go up. We're going to see them scrapping e-waste from, ripping apart solar panels to get that ounce out of them, if it's still in there. So, $14 for a quarter, almost $6 for a dime. There's 14 dimes, 14 dimes in an ounce of silver, and 5.5 quarters make up 1 ounce of silver. That's how much they've gone up just recently, which is insane in the membrane. But oh well. You're not going to care when silver's $200 and $300 that you paid that much, because look at what the price of a silver dime will be then. So it's going to get hairy. They're going to start pulling the cow apart. I told you guys, get into copper now. I looked online. I found some copper on Amazon. Is where I found it available, because it seems like a lot of the bullion dealers are out of it. And I think you probably could buy copper on Amazon, because I don't think they're going to sell fake copper yet. But I was seeing like 1 pound, and I'm just trying to buy it in bulk. Looking and trying to buy it in bulk. 1 pound and kilo. I think the 1 pound was like $32. Or maybe a little bit more. I think it was, yeah, $32 for 1 pound. That that actually said something about copper on it. What are you doing, puppy? I love. And they were doing them as paperweights too. So there's still some out there, and I was thinking about that's where I might put my next purchase in. Silver's getting too rich for my blood. I just don't have it right now. Like I said, I have some legal things I need to take care of. So need to keep some cash on hand so that I can, if need be, I can, I might have to hire another attorney here, which I don't want to, but we'll see what happens here next week. Yeah, we'll see. So, but, yep, it's a good time to be in this market right now. I think, again, that the next move is going to be pretty large in copper. I think copper is going to get a little bit harder to, obviously, with no pennies, and copper's not just something you can buy cheap, like that, where people think of it that way. It's copper piping, and although there's a lot of scrap copper there, you got to know how to get it and get access to it. So I don't think copper is as ready available as it seems now, and the price has gone up tremendously since I started. So I would even take a look, like I saw online on Amazon. I've never bought off Amazon, but another place you could buy precious metals, and I don't recommend, but I'm going to throw it out there, and I've never heard of any issues, and I cannot believe that I'm even saying this, but forever they have, is you can buy precious metals at Walmart. guys. Online, Walmart has but they just drop ship. They just drop ship from these other dealers, AtMex, JM. Uh, oh, bummer, man. Yeah, I always get mine taken. Uh, yeah, that sucks, Marissa. Yeah. Well, James, obviously, everything's getting more expensive in groceries. Uh, wow. Well, the economic collapse is already here. See, the economic collapse is when they print $1 trillion every 100 days. You keep losing your purchasing power. Uh, wow, man, James is getting hosed. Yeah, I mean, they always get the worst, huh? So, the collapse is here already. They're robbing all your purchasing power. It's getting more expensive for everything. So the collapse is, it's already here. That's what people don't realize is they're waiting for this, economic, but you know, as people with a little bit of extra will go buy a silver dime, even if it was one or two. They had $2 left over. They didn't go buy a soda. They went and bought a silver dime. Or if they had $5 left over, they went and bought a quarter. Some people have been preparing, and some people don't do anything about it. So I've been there where I've been pinched. Now, Father, I'm retired. I've been able to pay things off by working hard, and I have nothing. I have no paycheck, no veterans benefits, no Social Security. I've done it from the ground up in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere where it's hard to do, but it can be done. Um, if you put your lamp and keep it trimmed, and you don't know, and but burn bright, do what Father tells you. He can. There's a lot that can be provided. It's just most time people have stuck to an idea they need to be in some city, in some big house, or whatever, on a little tiny lot. I'd rather live out in the country on a big lot in a smaller house and have multiples if I want. But everybody has a different way of doing things. I create my own power. I bring in my own water. I'm not dependent on the system, so I can save a lot of money on things that people normally spend on a regular basis. I become my own system, raise my own food and cases, and grow food and do things like that. But some people don't. They get stuck in the 9 to 5. So it's pretty tough for people to get out of the system unless you really want it. um, it takes work to get out of the system, but people do it. I've done it from the ground up and had everything taken from me over and over again, and now I've been able to own the land that I'm on, and have own the homes, own everything I have. I'm not in debt by uh, having to have all the fancy things of life like most people have. And I like, what I have. I don't want the new fancy things anyways. I like to repurpose and rebuild and renew um, everything, and so I like to be the boss, so I can call into work and tell boss, hey boss, I'm tired of coming to work because I'm tired of looking at your ugly face. And the boss says, all right, well, I'm tired of looking at your ugly face too. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. And so, but and that's, but people don't want that. People want that to be, think that they need to get up and be enslaved, but they don't go buy silver. Remember, people, they think in a box. And so you can't change people, can't turn goats into a sheep, but where you put your treasure is not necessarily of all these things on this rock. But remember, we all get a different measure. Some people get the big old house and the big old white, the trophy husband or wife or whatever you want to call it, and that's their dream. But not to me. I don't think they know anything about being in anything Hollywood that has to do with Hollywood or television or music. Is not my, I'm not an actor. I don't want to be mirroring. I want to mirror the Hamashiach and do what he did. So that's why I do what I do. But the economic collapse is here. They've been robbing the purchasing power again. A dollar in 1913 would buy a dollar's worth of goods, and now it's lost 99% of its purchasing power. So it'll only buy a penny's worth. So you don't have to worry about the collapse happening. It's already here, and it's going to continue. They're going to keep robbing. Inflation is an expansion of the currency. That's how our inflation starts. It inflates, like blowing up a ball, like, but things will pop and things do correct. Um, the best thing you could do is spend your money on uh, that food is probably the most valuable thing you can put your hands on right now. Probably more valuable than any precious metals. Water filtration is really important. Have a water filter. Where you spend the money, yourself a water filter. You know, start gaining some independence from the system. Get out of the system. Become your own system, and you won't be struggling anymore. Become your own system. Become your own supply chain. Become your own boss. Become your own power company. Become empowered. It's empowering when you make all your own power. It is. Feels good. You know, you're not getting taxes and getting raised. Nobody's going to do a rolling brownout on my property or blackout. You know, I am the power company. I can only fix my power if I have an issue. You know, so I don't have to call for some trucks to come out there and wait hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and days to turn my power back on. I turn the power off and on in here. So, but the collapse is here. The collapses of the rights of the people too. They have not started the war, but they threw tea in the harbor over 2% taxes. Started a revolutionary war. Remember all that? And now people get state and federal, and then gross and net. And welcome to the collapse. Taxes. America, boys, where everybody's free. Why is everybody wood in my fireplace? Keep my puppy warm in here with the dad. My favorite puppy. My best puppy. Everything's best. My best one. You are the best puppy ever, Bo. Best puppy you ever had. I'll go check on my ladies, the hens outside. Give me a minute. I'll be back in a minute. I'll go outside. Good boy. Out there baking in the sun. Out there baking in the sun. I see this thing's freezing. It was outside. And it's freezing. It's outside. Wait a minute, Mom. Wow. See, ooh, that's a tough state to live in.
I turn that down for a minute. We can.
I made a steak earlier. It's pretty good. Wow. We're having some connectivity issues here. I think I got it. I got this. Had a couple of windows open. I don't know if that helped. So, what's on your radar today? What do you got going? All right, everyday gospel. So, I always share the gospel. That's where I put my treasure. I don't know if I'll get the things that I was trying to do on this rock done, but Father has pushed me backwards over and over again, but he always makes a way in the end. So I've seen that in a cycle throughout my years on this rock. I know he pulls me through the fire. And somehow, like Daniel, I come out, without being eaten by a dental lion, thrown into a dental lion. So, like, I have to go to probation tomorrow and talk to the head of probation, which is conflict of interest. So, I don't understand it, but Father is going to do whatever he wants in my life. So, same people who are responsible for Elijah missing and, potentially murdered and worked him like a slave, I'm now being thrown into the same people that did it to Elijah. So, because I stood up to him, I said, you can't do that to my son because he did his probation. Now I'm on probation for the same thing that they said he didn't do. Father so torments me so much. So, not wanting to go back to jail. So we'll see what Father has written for me. Everything not written, everything that will be, he'll do what he wants with me. So, who knows? I'm just going to keep trying to take it one day at a time now. Don't know quite how to think about this, but I never thought I would get to this point. It's so come full circle. Here I am now. Felony probation for standing up to them because I said my son didn't. They said he didn't do his probation, and he did it 2 times. So lawsuits will hopefully take care of it. Should have filed them sooner. That's what I get for being a nice guy. No more being nice. Nice means be stupid. Stupid and being not to file them sooner. So just move on with it. So, oh man, I don't want to give any advice, James, because you obviously see I don't know what you have to. I don't want to give you any economic advice. So, James? Do you have any? Are you invested in, before you buy anything? I would definitely say gold is at an all-time high, but so is silver. If you look at the ratio, it's 57-1. I'm not giving you economic advice. Silver is the better buy because the ratio. It will close. You might see silver go back down to $50 because it's been there before, but it doesn't matter. You just need to hold on to it. You don't hold it, you don't own it. I like this company, Scottsdale Mint. This is their. I like these Chubs by Scottsdale. I don't know why. I had a gold one that was made by the Perk Mint, but I had to sell it to get an attorney. But see, I needed the money. I got it, so I needed the attorney. So, but I would only buy buffaloes, personally, buffaloes, just because it's most familiar. Um, the buffalo rounds are what I prefer to have, just because I know they're the most visually what most people have seen a buffalo nickel, and you want to be able to, you know, get something that's familiar. So I go with buffaloes. That's what I prefer. You know, they sell bars, silver bars, and they make different intervals, you know, size pieces of silver, but I'd stick to the ounce for now. You know, no reason to buy less because you're going to pay a premium to buy that coin for broken down. It's called fractional when you break it. Fractional, break it down into smaller pieces. Uh, well, I had a criminal attorney, but I need to. Now I'm taking it at a state level on civil. I have to get another criminal attorney at a state level, and I am hiring a civil attorney to take care of the civil lawsuits. That's been a violation of my first, my fifth, my sixth, my eighth, my 12th, over and over again. You know, right to call witness in my favor, right to, you know, call in discovery any evidence at my own trial. I had no evidence that was brought in on my behalf, even by a paid attorney who I sold a lot of silver at $30 and gold at 3,000 when now it's, you know, and it's incredible. But that's Father beating me again, so nothing I can do about it. Just how much Father loves beats me. So I don't care about money. So now I'll sue him and I'll have millions of dollars. I just didn't think it was right for the taxpayer to pay. Who am I to say the Father will want to make him pay if he wants him to pay, or they won't be able to pay? So I don't get to be that. So bad. That's what I get for being nice. The word nice means be stupid. So I'm no more than Mr. Nice Guy. Not calling for violence. That's not me. I call for evolution, not revolution. Remember? They want you to put 6-shooter in a weapon and have a fight with each other, red team, blue team. I tell you, two cheeks to the same hole, two wings to the same dragon. I say evolution, go around the system, not like growing another thumb or kickstand to lean on or something. Say, lean on or Jesus. Well, that's some weird stuff. Yeah, I'd be finding me another job there, James. I don't care who you work for. I've been there. I mean, I've been a veteran, so they make you do all kinds of things when you're a veteran. You're government property. You fall under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, not civilian law. So, I mean, the Constitution still applies, but you fall under that UCMJ. But anyways, moving on. Uh, get out of the system. Stop working for the system. Sounds like you're deep embedded in some job that I wouldn't be having if it was me. Become a farmer. Grow your own food. There you go. Become a landowner. Stop trying to live in some big city. Father hates big cities. Broad is the way that leads to hell. The abyss. Father hates pride and he hates cities. So notice all the big cities got the Broadway and the big cloverleaf, you know, interchanges and 12-lane highways. I know I was born in the concrete jungle, but Father hates cities. So he used to have a pride. I remember trying to build towers to gods in the sky. There's no gods in the sky. So none of that nonsense like America makes no sense to me. Not even a single penny. Imagine that. Well, they're still in circulation, kind of like these people swimming around deception. You know, the deceiver is everywhere. 99 truths and a lie. 99 lies and a truth is hidden. You know, performs all the same miracles and wonders. So I don't like the system. Oh, you're a firefighter. Oh, well, hey, yeah. Would be here for one for a firefighter. Well, firefighter pulled me out of a burning building when my dad died in the house fire. So I dig my firefighters. Firefighters are, well, turning you, but I still have to be here because Father makes me. He's not done with me yet. But my dad died in the house fire, so if it wouldn't be for me, I was in the house, you know, almost all the way. They barely got me, but they got me out of there. Otherwise, I would have been in there and got smoked like my dad, you know. So, but everything happens for a reason. So, I have mad props for people who, like, you know, you never heard a song called "Fuck the Firefighter," have you? Nope. because a firefighter like myself, a veteran, is willing to give his life, he or she run into a burning building and save your wife, your boyfriend, your dog. Hell, they might probably save your gerbil. Freaking some of these firefighters are insane in the membrane. They just service to others kind of being. Two people on this rock, service self and service to others. You know them by their fruit, not judge them by their cover. Just something about a person. Never, like I said, I heard about a song called "Fuck the Firefighter." Pass that around the fire station, if you will. Because these cops, all they care about is safety. I know firefighters concerned for their safety, but they're willing to give their life. Never heard a song called, right? So I'm just saying, what happened to officers? All they care about is safety. I'm going home. So I used to be one of these pigs, but it is what it is. If they do their job and return us to a constitutional republic and arrest all these many tick politicians, bloodsuckers, and return our money to gold and silver, then I might, have something good. But otherwise, they're just asserting my right to address grievances. Doesn't mean they keep throwing me in a cage and messing with my family. And it is what it is. Father chose to do it. So everything not written, nobody's going to do anything to me that Father didn't write. Everything that ever will be, nobody's going to do anything that Father didn't want done to me. So Father doesn't make mistakes. Hallelujah. But we all go through a different path, Well, not different. There's two paths, the narrow way and the broad way. But, or as long as those paths leading to that straight gate, I'm trying to, purify myself by being like him, Christ-like. He stood up to perverted law. So people pay the price. Unbeknown to me, people around me normally suffer because of my standing up. My people might call it political activism, but history is being made every day. What are you doing about it? So some people running into burning buildings, so good for you. Thanks for being a firefighter. Like I said, I wouldn't be here. My dad died on 2 days before Christmas. I was in jail on December 23rd, 36 years ago. My dad died at 37. So almost been a long, I had my math was off. As many years as he's been dead, I've been alive since I was 16 when he passed in the fire. So I always say Christmas killed my dad, but didn't get me, almost. But that couple firefighters snagged me out of that, going in after punching out windows and kicking in windows, trying to get in there to get my dad. I was 16 years old, so I was quite a handful. But thank you for that day, Father, for training firefighters. We live not that far from the fire department, so I have a mad respect for people who are willing to give their life. And Father chooses our day of death, so it was already written. There was nothing. That's Father's timing. It's perfect. But I do give props always. Father's the creator, so Father created it. Firefighters, so Father created all things. Remember, everything evil. Isaiah 45:7, calamity and chaos. He creates all these things. So that really pisses off those religious idiots. No, evil. No, Father creates evil. So don't you ever read the book of Isaiah? No. But Father is perfect. Remember, he does everything the way he wants it. So he's the equator. The measure you pour out on others, we return, pour back on you. So you'll know them by their fruit. That's all I can say. People, you'll know their service. What are they doing? You're supposed to be sharing the gospel. It's everyday gospel. Remember, deny yourself daily, take up your cross daily, and follow after me daily. My disciples. So unless you're taking up your cross, and that's what he did. He suffered. I think it's so cold. I bought an iced tea. I think it's so cold it's gonna near explode. Oh, that's good at that. But isn't that good to know? Yeah, no, firefighters don't make great money, but they should make good money. They, wanting to go put out fires, especially in this modern day world now. It's a lot more fires. I mean, fires are always been fires, man. Just go look at the history of fires. You'd be in staggering numbers throughout history, and they building these places in these same places where these fires. Arizona tea. I don't drink these very often. I can't remember the last time I had these, probably about a year or two ago. Oh, that was cold. I was outside. Oh, that's sweet. Oh, a little bit's not going to kill Dad, huh? One iced tea's not going to kill Dad. Oh. Yeah, pretty much, Marissa. I don't like the whole thing today about officer safety, and I'm not saying whatever. It is what it is. Why is an officer always worried about safety? Why they don't feel that? It's not like a veteran or a firefighter that thinks, man, I'm going to give my life today if I have to for the job, and just always worried about going home. So different kind of. When I was in law enforcement, a man couldn't search a woman. Her Fourth Amendment be secure in her house, papers, persons, and effects, which gets violated every day in this country now. Whether I thought she had a weapon on her or not, I still have to call up a backup officer to do a pat down or frisk search of that woman. So things have changed in the world I live in. So it's not the same. I didn't know what I served, at that time when I was young. I delayed entry program at 17, 18. I was gone in the military, but times have changed. A woman's Fourth Amendment right. The officer's safety is more important in her Fourth Amendment. So, and vice versa. A woman couldn't search a man. She had to call in if she was all by herself, she had to call in a male officer to do a frisk or a pat down search of a. It is what it is. Like I said, people don't know what the Fourth Amendment is, and my rights of Fourth Amendment's been violated by using my Fourth Amendment. They violate it. It is what it is. So that's your right to warrantless search or seizure, and so when they perform a warrant, they still have to execute the warrant properly, whether they have the warrant or not. And you can't be taking people that aren't on the warrant. That's called kidnapping. So, kidnap my daughter. I've been saying that since day one. Yep. So, well, when I found out her name wasn't on the warrant, right? So, if you kidnap somebody with and you get convicted, that's 25 years. And if you, if you do it with a weapon, it's life in prison. So, pretty sad, how people get away with things, but they don't. They won't get away with it forever because Father has final judgment, on all of us. He pours out a just measure. The measure we pour out will be poured returned on us. So I never call for violence. But violence gets me, but that's what it is, To continue to look for, see what happens here. Like I said, I'm hoping civil suit will give me enough funding now because it ain't, I want to make sure that I do this without, seeking any vengeance. It's not my doing. It's about accountability now. So I have that right. I filed my appeal and we'll see what goes on with that. And civil lawsuit, I know that it's been violated. I have proof of it. So if it's on this live stream, it's on the playlist. You can't hit people in the face with a grenade. Nobody's being violent. And the discovery would show the 258 hours of explaining there's no, we need to have a conversation. And even during the SWAT raid, I was pleading, de-escalation the whole time for communication. They just wanted violence. So here I am stuck in their system, and the one that got my son potentially murdered, I'm now next on the chopping block, right? So it is what it is. Make a great story, eh? It's Father's writing his story, not something in a book. Yep, it's my life. Thanks for being a witness. It's been a long struggle, and I got a long way to go. Nothing's gonna change on this overnight. Hey, but at least I didn't take a deal. Why would I take a deal? So, all right. Appreciate your time, on it. Said we'll see. I got to get through tomorrow with this head of probation and try to keep my head on and not, what else can I say? I still don't understand how the head of probation could be my caseworker. He was the one that I, during Elijah's, you know, probation, he won't never call me and have a conversation about Elijah's probation. And I've brought it up how many times, and still to this day, it's never been spoken about in open court. So that's just what Father wants. I guess at this point, it's all through appeal process. I know that's how it'll get looked at, and now through civil. But I try to let the criminal system do what it needed to do, and there's three, that's three separate kind of deals. That's where it's a House of Congress and a Senate, so I guess can't be too upset at that. I do go by that. It says repugnant, but I don't know. That's not what they're following here, but judicial, legislative, and executive branches, and this is not what's going on in this case, but whatever. We're taking it. I already called for a change of venue. I didn't think I could get a fair trial on this, and I proved that. So I didn't have any witnesses. No witnesses were called in my favor. No discovery whatsoever on my behalf, which violates my Sixth Amendment. I have the right to fair and speedy trial. I have the right to call witness in my favor under discovery, right of discovery, suppression of evidence. They can't suppress witnesses or discovery, and if they do, then it's a mistrial. That's manifest necessity, but it'll get taken care of. That's the way it's going to work. I didn't ask for it. I asked them not to take me to trial. I asked them not to bring guns in this house. Men in here, they need to come in here. They could have met at the gate. They could have talked to me. They could have used a phone call. They could have called for years. So they're going to have to answer why, Tony Karsten was never received a conviction and my son did. Why was my son and 4 accomplices, one of 5 guys, the only one to go to jail? They don't want to talk about it. They never have. So I tried to bring it up to my own paid attorney. So he didn't want to, he said I didn't break the law because I didn't provide Elijah a car that was his, an aider on his car. And I told him, don't stop the vehicle. I didn't physically stop him. Elijah could have stopped the vehicle. He chose not to. So they still convicted me anyways. So took it to trial, and that's what happened. But I'm not concerned, Father. That's exactly what I wanted, because they shouldn't have the trial to begin with. They violated my rights. There was no discovery. Elijah wasn't there. And I've been calling even my own attorney that if you do this, even to Pat Wolke on when he held me at my pretrial with Paul Palmer readiness hearing, that you can't take me to trial without bringing witness into discovery. I have that right under the suppression of evidence. That's, a Sixth Amendment right of trial, fair trial, speedy trial, the right to call witness in your favor. I also have the right to adequate counsel under my Fifth Amendment, and that was violated as well. So many rights have been violated. Cruel and unusual punishment, the right of due process. These are 8th and 12th. These are other amendments that I have civil cases on. And what do? I go there tomorrow and talk to the head of probation about this. I already told him he's the one responsible, and he said he saw Elijah in Lane County. And so if he saw him, why didn't they have him at trial? It don't make any sense at all. So there's just too many things in this that lets me know Father has his hands in this. There's nothing I can do. I have just to don't worry, I'm sure. Who is that, Marissa? I was going to tell. Oh, no worries. My chat takes a minute to catch up. Sometimes it doesn't say anything. I have to refresh it, but I know God has his hand in it. Father has his hand in it. He'll do whatever he wants with me. In this case, like I said, I still have the right of affirmative defense. I'm protecting myself, was trying to protect myself, my son, from illegal prosecution. I know he did his probation. That's how it, I don't even need to go into it. It doesn't buy the timeline that I did for 258 hours shows that, why didn't they call him these witnesses? Nothing was called in my favor. So I'm going to have to go civilly after this. And I'm sure if, there's multiple ways. That's what I'm saying. I'm definitely, uh, there's a bond. All these people are bonded and through civil lawsuit. Some people found criminally negligent for what they do. So it doesn't always happen in civil court and then that, or criminal court. And that's how civil criminal charges can be brought. But I didn't ask for any of this. Remember, that's why Father is just making me do it because I have to. So I'll take it to the Supreme Court. I'm not going to stop. I have the rest of my life to do this until I can find my son and daughter, and they can not have to be looking over their shoulder, because that's the only option at this point. If they're alive or they're dead, but I can't even report their bodies, missing. So, what a crazy time! What a crazy life, for both of them too, to have to be in this situation. I think everybody just so crazy that they have such small worlds that he's almost 4 years, didn't get in any trouble and just staying to themselves, living in their house and being, with no noise complaints, doing everything they were supposed to be doing. And then over some procedural, that he didn't do his probation, then he did it all over again. He couldn't do it quick enough, and he still had 3 months left on probation. They were going to just throw him in prison for 5 years. And I had to get in front of it and say, no, you can't do that. I was here at the time of his arrest, so I've just forgotten. This case is a very old case, and it's never been dealt with, but I'm going to have to deal with it through civil litigation. And Father's crazy because he sits there and throws me right back into these people's, hands that did what they did to Elijah. And it was tough being in there this last time. That's the third time they've thrown me in there, and just can't think that Elijah, this time they had a whole, different system. They had the whole prison system in there with commissary, but you don't get it for 9 days. So anybody who's there less than 9 days doesn't get anything, and that sucks, man. Yeah. So I don't know what Father has in store for me. I hope, like I said, they don't like me, so I don't have any. I have an appointment tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it's conflict of interest. I'm going to definitely ask to be moved out of this county, the probation, because this is not, it's conflict of interest. I'm going to be suing this county and everybody who was involved in Elijah's case because of the negligence that they, didn't even one time, to call me to try to de-escalate the situation. Instead, they sent a SWAT team and violated my right of, cruel and unusual punishment, 8th Amendment, and then due process 12th, and the, 4th Amendment. When they executed the warrant, they didn't execute a prophecy. They assaulted me, assaulted Elijah, shot him with his hands in the air, grenaded me, grenaded my animals, tear gassed me, tear gassed my animals. That was all excessive force. And, anybody who can go look at the, SWAT raid video would wonder why I haven't filed the the lawsuit, because this isn't about money. I'm trying to focus on my son and daughter, and it's probably would have been better to do that because it probably would have provided some more money. And I do think at this point in time, when this civil suit comes in, they'll send a team of investigators. Right now there's a lot of money involved to be brought under suit because of the violations of what they just did to me just that day, and since that day. Even the last thing, they just violated my rights under trial, didn't allow me to have any evidence in my favor. It's a suppression of evidence, and there's just so many others in this case. So, hopefully, like I said, it just make it through tomorrow. They leave me alone, don't try to mess with me, throw me in jail for some stupid reason, do some dumbass shit, and Whatever. All I've ever been is just a dad who's trying to say, hey, my son did all this already. Uh, if Elijah didn't do it, then why could he have gotten off probation at 17 months? That the whole thing is a scam, and it shows. And I'm hoping someday that I can, you know, do some kind of not mainstream movie about it, something alternative, so people can see how people get stuck in the system. It'd be just the craziest movie because now I'm right back in the hands of the people who did this to my son. It's uh, but I have to. Remember, I could have gotten no probation, and I'm going to remind him that you offered me no probation and of misdemeanor, but no, I'm taking it to trial because you need to look at the evidence in this case, and it still hasn't got looked at. So I don't know what they're going to try to do to me, but this guy, Jay, I know he's look at the guy's record. I mean, look what he's allowed to happen just in Elijah's case. This is insane. I've called the guy for 5 years, and I even asked him to meet with me. In the 23 days that I was in there, I asked him to have a meeting with me while I was in jail, and he didn't. He came to my cell. He didn't talk to me. And it's conflict of interest for him to even talk to me at this point. I'm going to say it's conflict of interest. I don't know what he wants. I'll just answer whatever you want. I'm not going to get in any trouble in jail. I don't act up like that. I'm not calling for violence. I've never been like that. I'm using my mouth. I have felonies because I use my mouth to say, no, Elijah, don't stop the car. I didn't physically do anything. So they physically did what they did to me. And that's what I'm going to hold them accountable for. So if they throw me in jail, I'll get out of jail. I'm still going to file these lawsuits. It doesn't matter. I should have filed them a while ago. And that's what I get for being nice and thinking that the taxpayer shouldn't have to pay. But Father didn't like taxes, so it felt it's not for me to decide. So that's who has to pay these suits, because the behavior of their public servant and community servants are, criminal, and that's, ends up making the taxpayer have to pay. But they're allowing it to go on in their, county, so it's not for me to decide in state. So, a man's voice can get him in a lot of trouble, especially when you stand up to perverted law like Christ did. So. Somebody will hear me someday. If not, I'll die trying, and I won't have to sit there and feel like I missed something and I should have done something and I could have done something. I did exactly what I did because that's what Christ liked to do. If somebody's perverting something like they perverted this constitutional republic to be this corporation, nobody knows about it. I mean, they're still, it's like celebrating the new year in the middle of the winter. Whatever, they can think whatever they want about me. Father's going to do whatever he's going to do to me. But like I said, it'd make a pretty ironic, and kind of crazy, movie for somebody to watch, not even mainstream, not even talking about that, but, like an alternative so people would understand what happens to people when, people get trapped within community service and probation. And I'm not talking about like for just the stupidest reoffending, things. And it's hard to get off probation in this county. There's known for people being on probation for extended periods because, they get violated for the stupidest things. So, there's there will be someday. Like I said, they can't throw me in jail forever. I don't know what they were. Like I said, I don't want to ever eat any food in jail ever again. I'd buy commissary, and I think that's what I'd live on. There's nothing in there anymore. That's not good food, I'll tell you that. My body doesn't agree with it. I'm still feeling it, but it is what it is. I'll get over it. Try to just keep eating. I've been drinking lots of fluids, just trying to keep myself flushed of as much fluid as I can. I drink more water than anything. Got juice. About an iced tea. I normally don't drink those, but I think that Arizona, it doesn't have It's no corn syrup. I think it's sugar is what's in it. Sugar's not good either way, but I don't like corn syrup. Try to avoid it. So, and I had to eat a lot. I eat bread. I quit eating bread. I don't eat bread. So, you know, quit eating pasta and sugar and all those things. But yeah, I'll have to put it in Father's hands. So I don't know. Tomorrow's a pretty big day. Sit there and try to tell the probation officer that, hey, I don't think you should be talking to me. I will answer your questions, but whatever. I don't know what, whatever they want to ask me or whatever they don't, whatever the hell they want to do. But I'm placing civil lawsuit against him, because he's involved in Elijah's missing person. You know, um, and if he knows where he's at, why wasn't he brought to trial? So I'm very confused at why he would tell me he knows where Elijah's at. Just like Josephine County know where he's at, not go get him. But that Josephine County is a whole separate incident that I have to deal with through civil lawsuit. I'm gonna sue Josephine County for not going that day and looking for Adriana because evidence shows that they had no, uh, there was no contact order should have not been placed with me and Adriana because they had dropped her charges, which means there was no contact order. Maybe between me and Elijah, but not me and Adriana. So that's a critical error on their part not to go call for service to go at least look for her body. Because remember, her body was the one that was kidnapped that day of the warrant. So illegally without warrants. So she has been put through a lot of hell right now, and I don't know where she's at. And I've been reporting her just as missing as my son as well. And both their accounts online are, you know, there's no activity. Elijah's phone's been off for many months. I've already reported all this to go look that this is the man that took my 40 pounds of silver, and look at the price of silver now. What is 40 pounds of silver at $80 an ounce? Do the math. There's 12 ounces in 1 silver pound. So 12 times 40 times 80. What do you come up with there? That's what was taken in there. I had a lot of, Mexican is what I prefer. It's just kind of a bummer. Yep. Jack knows, up in the mines. That's where they're at, huh? Damn it. How long you been here, Jack? You been here before? I don't know, 40 grand, huh? It's crazy. I always get snatched, man. People always taking. I just trying to help Elijah out. Gave him my, access to my gold, but said leave. Cool. It's not where I want, I'm saying. I could be wrong, but at this point, if it was him, because, who I said, Marshall, it would be, because he said he could go take him there, what I'm saying? And hide him and they can go make money there. And I said, no, he's going to stay here and we're going to face this. They know where we're at, we're not having to stand off. We're standing up, using the right, to be secure and use the Fourth Amendment. We're not using any Second Amendment items. We don't want men with guns. Don't bring a fight like that. We need to talk and redress grievance, First Amendment right. Congress shall establish no law prohibiting the excess of free speech. Come on, we're not threatening violence here. We're, and never any chance was de-escalation ever made in the case. So I just feel, again, it obviously it had a lot to do with that gold and silver that was taken from here to help Elijah out, and Josephine County not going to look and do just call for service for that alone, and a passport shows something's going on above that property. And it's a sticky situation, man. Father has Elijah and Adriana right where they want to be. I hope they're not up there and something has happened to them and they're in a bad way. But I already explained that Adriana could file an immediate, kidnapping. Her body was kidnapped. That was not a good move on the part of the state of Oregon to not come with the warrant and have anything listed on her body, and that was and her charges were dropped, and that they should have left her alone and given Elijah his life back, and said, okay, hey, look, but I've been neglected to file these civil lawsuits, so I will file for cruel and unusual, punishment, right, of due process, a violation of my Sixth Amendment. The last thing that happened to me is they took me to trial without my son there, and he is a key witness. He's the one who was driving. Maybe then Elijah would have heard that, hey, he was not stopping because he'd done his probation and his dad was telling him not to, and he still has that right to protect himself under the Fourth Amendment. He has the right of what is called affirmative defense. Affirmative defense allows you to protect yourself from legal prosecution. It's called excuse or justification defense. That excuse or justification defense allows for an excuse of actions or justification of actions in a civil and criminal trial. Your actions are justified under your Fourth Amendment to protect yourself from legal prosecution. I know my rights, and that's what's pissing them off. But it doesn't matter. They'll throw me in jail anyways, as you can see. Uh, so I know my rights, and I'm asserting them. They keep violating them. So I'm not understanding how Father has me now go facing the head of the probation, when he tells me he knows where my son was at, where he should have been called up for discovery, the right of discovery and suppression of evidence. They have under the Sixth Amendment my right to bring and call witness in my favor, and he is one that one needed to be there. Adriana not being there, I wanted her there too. I want Ryan Solberg. I want Kresha Brunsman. I want, Officer Black. I want Tom, Dawn, Morgan, the two females that he did it with. Those are the, will Tony Karsten be there? Will, the other Elijah? Well, I have a massive, this case is going to go eventually to federal. I'm not stopping on this case, but, they've neglected to even talk about Elijah's probation. There was no evidence. It was just the video of me telling Elijah not to stop and the cops following behind it. There was no evidence brought in because I didn't stop my son. That's not interfering. They dropped Adriana's charges for the same thing. Her charges were dropped in September. The state police said Elijah went missing in September. Gee, I find that ironic. Something in this case from the beginning, I've told them. So I don't know what to do. Like I said, I don't know what they want me to say. Well, what is your plan? Because there will be an action plan. It's called an action plan. Like Elijah's action plan didn't say anything that he only had 47 hours and he had a remaining 133 until he hit month 33. Thank you, Father. 3 months of getting off probation. He already got in trouble. He gets, the first time, and then this happens, and then now he's, this is incredible. And he still had 3 months of probation left. All the numbers on this case are, if I can get myself into out of this county, which I called for a change of venue, I would represent myself in open court, but I can't in this court. They'll throw me in contempt. That's why I didn't say anything at my own trial, and I could have went on the witness stand, but I would have went in contempt. And I'm not doing that. Now I have that is, in my discovery, and when they bring this to, because I've already filed an appeal, and I don't wanted it, never wanted it, because I already told them I wasn't going to get a fair trial by jury bias, judge bias, you just, political bias. I explained this to my own paid attorney, John Caligo, who went in too, and whether or not this is what it is. His not calling Elijah at least summons for him, at his home of residence, even if it didn't work, or Adriana or any of these other people is a violation of my rights. I have the right to call discovery. That's a Sixth Amendment right. That is your right of trial. And if they're going to charge you under Title 18, they're obviously interference, and that's what my attorney said. He didn't stop. He didn't block. It's not his car. He didn't break the law. That's all he went in there, and that's all he basically said. I mean, it takes a while to get it all set up, and they just convicted me. So I've done my time, but now I'm back in their pool of, the same, where this head of probation, he's not going to like me. And I already told him when I was in jail that I'm going to sue him. And he didn't seem to, I've not the first time been in suit, but I don't think he understands, in this case, I've called for his discovery to call these, 5 people were involved in a and not it's their, it's petty theft because there was no victim. They were all empty buildings, kids hanging out in vacant buildings that have been left out here being kids. But there's a leader, and they try to make my son out as a leader, and they let a man who is a rapist run around in the county for a year. And so I was an unhappy dad, and they've never want to talk about this in this case, and it started, and all these other received convictions. One got off, but the other three, and then it's because they don't know who it is, which obviously they do. It's just the way this county works. And the other was their contract, you know what I'm saying? Uh, and that was Tony Karsten. That's somebody that I wanted away from my son and brought to the attention of parole and probation to get him away from my son. Then he ends up getting all these kids in trouble, but they all took deals. My son didn't. He sit in jail, that hellhole, without even top ramen back then, for 11 months, and so this case, it just cannot get swept under the rug, and so they violated my rights again. So I just don't, like I said, I'm trying not to overdo it, but I don't know what Father has in store for me. This guy doesn't like me, and I don't want to go back to jail. I mean, I haven't done anything. Come home and just chillax and do it. I'm not, but if you speak up, they just beat you down, and you can see what they've done here. So I will file this, like I said, civil, I've already gotten a hold of attorneys here. So it's on the line. I'm reviewing discovery, and, like I said, it was the Christmas weekend. So, but it is what it is. Father won't put me through anything that says he creates everything not written. So whatever they're going to do or try to do or don't do, or I just think for their best interest in the case, they shouldn't have me talking to anybody that was involved with Elijah's case at this point. If they have an officer there, I think Rachel, I don't know who that is. I don't think I ever dealt with her. I think I know who she is, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation. I know I've left many messages on, Jake Greer's message machine. He'd never talked to me until I actually saw him that day when he gave me some paperwork to fill out. And I tried to have a meeting with him, but he wouldn't meet with me in jail, even sit down in the jury room. The commander corporal, in there was said, oh, you guys can go in the attorney room, but never chose, but came to my cell to speak to one of the guys that's in my cell, but never had a conversation with me. So hasn't chosen for his negligence. And so I tried to make conversation again with him, even in jail. So now I'm going to go sit in front of him. I mean, I don't know if he'll even be there. Hopefully they're smart enough to know that if I'm filing an appeal and know that I'm going to take this to, civil litigation, that by me having contact with these other people where I've now reported, hey, you're responsible for my son's death, and then he tells me he knows where Elijah's at, but doesn't bring him into my trial, is a Sixth Amendment violation. And why would they know Elijah's at and then not bring him? He has a 5-year prison sentence at the minimum. And he's going to have to go before a judge on these, charges that I am, with his felony eluding when nobody sped off, and we just came back to the house, like I said, and that's still covered under my actions, under my affirmative defense. My actions are justified, and excused defense is the Fourth Amendment to be secure my house, papers, persons, effects. If they're going to accost me, and even I'm not going to even go into it, but a right to travel is part of this constitutional republic as well. But people have forgotten that as well. Your road taxes are paid for by fuel. Your other tax money goes to war. Learn where your taxes go. So, and a right to travel cannot be impeded unless you've committed a crime. So let's not go into all that right now. I'm just, it's unknown to me. So if I can make it tomorrow, they leave me alone, that's fine. Like I said, I'm just going to leave them alone. I'm actually going to ask for my probation to be moved to a different county. I'll go, to the county over, and I'll drive through the snowy pass, whatever I have to do. I don't want to deal with these people. I won't mess with them. All I ever do is speak up to their corruption for things like this. They're going to put me right in front of a man who I have said, you're liable for my son's missing body. All these, he's been missing since his case in December, but they said, I remember he was on the phone in October, but the state police said he went missing in September. Their timeline's off, something's in this whole case, but I'll get it looked at. But going on? Anchorage going on from the north there. So, yep. Just got out of the thrown in jail for taking it to trial. And yeah, but it is what it is. Again, I'll take what Father ever throws at me. He don't make mistakes, but I just don't want to say anything, out of line, because I'm up to my throwing me back in that damn jail. Me thinking Elijah had to be in there for 10 months. It just drove me nuts that they, it's the third time they throw me in there, and so where the hell's my son? And then he's not there at my trial. It's a mistrial. So I'll get it out of this county. And as soon as I get out of this county, it'll get taken care of. I've been trying to call for a change of venue because I said this was going to happen, and it's all here on this YouTube channel. So I want to take this to the Supreme Court and make this case law on what has been done in this case. So because it's not right what has been done to Elijah and his wife, were that assault on their body and their ears and their life has been up, and all they were doing was working, and she had a good job and he had a career, and it's his own service by hands, fixing, doing honest, dirty hands, from working on cars and traveling, to the borders because he couldn't leave the state, and fixing people's cars all over the state, and had a good reputation, and would sit there and talk to me on the phone when he's modifying these cars. No, Dad, and still church with me. They took the only person that I churched with on a regular basis, in this world, and Father put him right underneath my nose and was going to move over off of Bowens, and then took him away from me. So there's no vengeance here. I just want answers on where is my son, and now not having him at my trial is a violation. So I have to just keep continuing to document, this information. They just did, and I told them don't do it to me. I told my home attorney, I told the Wolke from Josephine County not to do it, told Vandenberg don't, you're violating my rights, and they still do it. So it doesn't matter. What they just did to me was a violation that should have never been a trial. Without Adriana there, without Elijah there, it's not a fair trial. It's a mistrial, and especially if it's a critical witness. Elijah is a critical witness. I have a right to call witness. That's a negligence on my own paid attorney's part. He made some serious mistakes in this case by being confident, thinking all he needed to was because I didn't break the law. I didn't force my son. He could have pulled over and stopped. I didn't provide him a car. You know what I'm saying? No, nobody's been. Nope. I put on her thing, go file a lawsuit. They kidnapped you. They both been gone since September, guys. Last year, it's been over a year. They both been missing, and I've reported both their bodies. Missing, raped, murdered, and nobody's taken a report. Even I have a paid attorney who told me to call the state police, and they don't have jurisdiction, which I made under discovery onto this YouTube channel. So, but it is what it is. Father is going to put me through more fiery trials. I know it. That's why I tried to explain. I wish, it was not wish, but I know it's not over yet, because I still have to take this through appeal and then to the federal Supreme Court, and to document this. I have that right under due process, and that's been already failed. So there's more civil rights violations. My civil rights have been violated in ways that, are very documentable, very easily shown through this YouTube channel. This whole channel is going to come under discovery. They're going to have to. I know it. I know what I come in here and do. There would be no, like I said, it's my negligence, neglecting to file a civil lawsuit sooner, because I don't want monetary gain, and I don't want the public to have to gain from the general public who's having to pay taxes. I don't like taxes. Taxes should be, They're part of war. We didn't have taxes to the wars, but they didn't. They threw tea in the harbor over 2%. We don't go into it again, but it is what it is, and I don't want the system's not taking money from me because I didn't willingly take a deal. They convicted me, but it still was an illegal trial. So it was a mistrial. I try to explain that. If you just look up the word manifest necessity, I had videos of it before I ever went to trial. I did a video on manifest necessity explaining the right to call witness in my favor. I have videos called no witness in my favor. Trying to lead them up. You can't do this to me. It is what it is. If they do this, it's a violation of a civil rights of Sixth Amendment to fair and speedy trial, the right to call in discovery witness in your favor. And critical witness missing in a case at trial makes it a mistrial, and it's called manifest necessity. And the seated judge is supposed to call it a mistrial, so there's no double jeopardy. So they really made some serious mistakes between the paid attorney, the district attorney, and the judge that day. All allowed something that should have never happened. And I've tried to tell both John and, like I said, of all, you my paid attorney, you can't, this is not the way this works. I know my rights. I was trying to tell him this has to be brought in discovery. You have to have Elijah there. I know he couldn't stop and you don't need it, but he needs to be, we need to summons, to figure out where he's at. And, I've already reported. And then he told me report to the state police. I called them. They didn't have just, it's all documented, so when it gets out of this county, it's just like I said, it's like, I might need to even move out of this county, and I don't want them to chase me out of here. This is my home. This is where I build home. This is where I have my animals. I already just lost a cat over this now, too. So I was in another chicken, and I lose animals every time they throw me in jail. Lost first time, it's second time. Oh my goodness, it just never stopped. So father's doing it. I'm not mad at any of them, but I sure like my son and daughter to get their lives back. It's very hard for me to believe that they're alive, because I think immediately Adriana could file a lawsuit against both the state for her kidnapping and the county, and could have their lives back. But they're not. Neither of them are gone. No, they could have already done that. So there's still an open warrant for Elijah's arrest, but yet the head of probation tells me he knows where he's at when I tell him that he's been missing and murdered. How is that? How has he not been brought back in under a 5-year downward departure? I mean, he does all 5 years. I don't buy it. So some of this stuff in this case is in this case is just mind numbing. Like Josephine County not going over there, and then Josephine County telling me that there's a no contact order with Adriana. No, that was dropped. Her charges were dropped in September, so that was false. If anything, that day they should have went there and looked for Adriana and did a call for service for the 40 pounds of silver and the passport, aside with Elijah. And they had a 5-year warrant for Elijah. Why would they not go there that day? That's insane. That's just wrong. And Josephine County, separate lawsuit. I really couldn't go into too much, Marissa. Because the corporal was telling me to not argue with, and I'm like, I'm not arguing. I've been asked 5 years. I've tried to talk to this guy, and ain't not once. So let's make a meeting. I'm in handcuffs, so I gotta go by their. You know what I'm saying, Marissa. So I appreciate your question, but I mean, it was mind numbing, because remember, Josephine County said they knew where he was at, got him on video, but they didn't go get him. I called for a warrant, he had a warrant for his arrest, but was more concerned about even telling, hey, I don't want you to shoot my son. He's already been shot, not by your county, but by the state police, and they told me, stop calling us to do your dirty work, Tracy. If we go there and we make contact, you have a no contact order with Adriana and Elijah. So we be making contact with him. You're violating your third party no contact. We'll come arrest you, and have that when threaten me with arrest for trying to call for service for those 40 pounds of silver in my passport and my daughter, who could be raped. I said she could be being, but they said because of the no contact order, which there wasn't. that's going to come out in trial, of a jury verdict on indictments on these Josephine County officers too. That will guarantee. They look at the evidence; it's there. Get the CAD call. You'll see he threatened to arrest me, and they didn't go. They should have gone and at least looked for that federal passport. It's a federal offense to withhold or steal somebody's passport. That should have got the feds involved right there. This whole case it's a mess. It's a mess, you know. Um, Over and over, civil rights violations of Elijah, due process, Sixth Amendment. He too. Both of those, my son and daughter, should never ever struggle with any monetary, and I think they would both be good stewards of having, an abundance of time and money to enjoy and to be charitable with those things, and would find good things. I know my son grew up very charitable, giving away a lot of his toys, and would give you the clothes off his back. And he's a good young man. I wouldn't be standing up for him if he didn't do these things. I just made this up. Elijah did that probation with 5 people. One of 5 guys, the only one, 4 accomplices, and he's the only one to go to jail, and one of them's a rapist. I mean, this whole case is an atrocity. This should have already, been dealt with a long time ago, but this county's been so stubborn to keep holding this in and thinking they can cover this up, but it's not. I have the right of appeal. That's why I asked for change of venue, so they wouldn't keep making the violations and of my rights and performing these criminal acts against me and my family and the people around me. And it's all being documented by Father. He watches all these things. He's creating all these things, so I'm not trying to change it. I just have to do my part to do what Christ did, stand against perverted law, and that's what they've done. And so, isn't it quite, interesting that here I am now in the same people that did this to my son. I'm now under their wing of probation, and they're going to try to do whatever they can to me because that's how crooked I know they are. They'll do whatever they can to throw me back in jail and try to. Look at what they've already done. They've got to let it get this far, but most of the time people go quietly into the night, take a deal and it all goes away. But then I'd have to answer to Father. Taking a deal was not an option ever. So I have the right of trial, but I have the right to fair trial. They didn't give me a fair trial, so it's okay. It's a civil rights violation of my 6th Amendment just to start, and so that's a civil lawsuit for what happened. That trial that day is a civil lawsuit. And so I have to accept that's what Father wanted. They found me guilty, and every one of them raised their hands. That's fine. They had no idea what they were looking at. All they saw was me driving down the road. They didn't know why. Nothing was brought up about Elijah, doing these 180 hours and then having to do them all over again. They said he only did 47. None of the witnesses, none that he could have got off at 17, but nothing was brought up. It was just, that was the only evidence was the state's evidence against me. How about that for a civil rights violation? So I didn't have any discovery, except for attorney just said he's not breaking the law. That's basically, he didn't break the law because he didn't stop. His son could have stopped. He didn't supply him the car. That's the only defense I got. Tens of thousands of dollars I spent, and that's the defense that I got. So, but that's what Father wanted for me. That's what I got, right? So it'll work out exactly how Father wants it, no matter what happens to me. So I just don't know what to say tomorrow to this guy. I seriously hold this guy responsible for my son's murder or death, and I have to talk to him. Father's going to make me talk to this guy again. Don't you think that's called a conflict of interest? I mean, at the minimum, they should have me talk to somebody. My probation officer should be somebody not involved in Elijah's case. Somebody as Elijah's never been under, that way there's no conflict of interest or bias. And then, but we'll see. They make some pretty critical errors. Like I made some pretty critical errors when I went to jail by eating that damn food. And I didn't eat much of it, but I did eat, some of it a little bit. And that water, hell no. That water is toxic. I'm not drinking the water there. And I didn't get commissary for like 2 weeks. So that's pretty shitty. Apologize for cursing, but not very nice. People go there for a week. You know, you don't get your commissary for like 9 days. You're screwed. 8 days, something like that. And then the delay of the holidays, man. Stuff's coming from another state. That's what was kind of irritating when I went there this time, because they actually had like a prison system, spam, the whole thing, hot sauce, all up in, but they didn't have ramen when my son was in there. He was in there for nearly a year, 10 and a half, almost 11 months. So I am hopeful that maybe Father doesn't ever throw me back in there again, because I don't, like I said, all I've been doing is just standing up for my son, and this is what it's got me. So if Father didn't want it to be this way, then it would be this way. But now there's all these violations, and people will be held accountable, even if they get away with it in this lifetime. Father's discovery. He knows the measure you pour out on others will be poured back out on you. If anybody just look at the YouTube evidence on this case, and then not let alone go to do actual physical witness, would be appalled, at what's going on here. So, but Father creates evil to do evil things to the people he loves, to test them, to see if they'll strike back. And I haven't sought any vengeance on any of these people. I've actually just been trying to get him to let Elijah be and let him go. He already did his time. The only guy to go to jail, and 4 accomplices. Nobody else goes to jail. And then, he gets all the way to the end of his probation, where he could have got off at 17 months if I had $47,000. Instead, they say he didn't do he only had 47 hours and he needed to do 133, and he had 33 months. I already did all these videos of this, the 180 hours, yeah, whatever. It's so far into this right now, it's unbelievable. So got a long way to go through the appeals court too. That could take some time, and go into federal too. I want the state is involved. Why isn't the feds gotten involved in this already? The state of Oregon came out here. The state of Oregon will not take a report of Elijah being murdered or missing. Neither will, Josephine County. So, no, I didn't. I had an attorney, but I will if I can get out of this court. If I could get out of this county, I'll represent myself. I'll surely represent myself. But because I know the case better than anybody else. I know my rights. From day one, I know my rights. So I'm not afraid to. I mean, you don't want to do that. That's very dangerous to do that, especially in a court where they're doing what they did to me. So obviously just allowed a mistrial. They didn't call manifest necessity in the case, and they should have. They were missing critical witness. And to just fail to call discovery and that's called the right of discovery and the suppression of evidence. They cannot suppress evidence at trial. And that's exactly what they did. They suppressed my son and daughter and my witnesses, and they did not allow any discovery, call for discovery because each side needs to, know what evidence is being brought against the other side, so they have time for discovery to go over the evidence. And so I know this. I mean, I've been in law enforcement. I've represented myself in open court before in custody of my son, and I didn't win those cases, but I got told, that I did a better job than the paid attorneys. So it is what it is. Father is, like I said, I just hopefully this, appeal case doesn't take long, and there will be evidence that brought in discovery. I don't think it will take long before they say, well, that was a mistrial already. So anything here at this level it's almost pointless, because you can't, with double jeopardy, you're supposed to call a mistrial. Yeah, that's what I do. I'm a prior, so that's what this YouTube channel has become. I don't mean it to be like that, but I filmed the SWAT raid. YouTube saved my life. Father did, but he spared my life. But if it wasn't for YouTube, I wouldn't be here. That's how powerful YouTube is. I filmed the whole SWAT raid. So, well, pretty much after they grenaded my son and daughter, I woke up and filmed it and got grenaded myself. And then my son got shot, and then I got tear gassed, and so did my animals. And They wrecked this place. And I still don't have the windows replaced in the front of the cabin. They shot out with the tear gas canisters. 4 or 5 of them at least came inside here. So you can hear it on the live stream. But I didn't take them to court because I was a nice guy. Nice guys finish last, right? So the word nice means to be stupid. So that's what I get, stupid, for not filing it, because I don't want the taxpayer to pay. But it's never been about money. It's been about trying to locate my son and daughter's missing bodies, figure out where they're at, and go after and file civil suit. But it's all right. I already called civil lawsuit attorneys, and I haven't found, the one that's over the weekend that's taken it yet. But I've called for discovery, and they know the evidence where it's at. And I'm sure once they look at the SWAT raid, they'll realize how many violations were made, because I did get to talk to receptionists and, whatever. And so only so much you can give them. But there's a lot of evidence in this 258 hours of discovery, even before they ever SWAT raided the house, and going over the 5 years of discovery that I brought with the case where my son was made to do double probation, double jeopardy. He had to do it and do it all over again. Not all of it, but they said he only did a small amount of hours. It's not possible. I go over it in my own by making discovery on here, but that didn't matter. They just brought a SWAT team in the state of Oregon out. So should have got Josephine County, should have got the feds involved at not calling, to go see Adriana if she was there, because her car was there. I reported her car there, and I reported what Marshall had said. Her charges were dropped, and he said she needed money to pay an attorney. And I don't know why she would have sold that car to him all the way down, as many miles away. She could have sold that car to anybody. It wasn't modified. It was a stock car, and anybody could have bought it. So, and it replaced my son's car that was a little yellow truck. My son went on the run for 5 years in a yellow truck, and he bought my daughter's car when he said he didn't talk to either of them. So he was lying to me. So that's why I sent Josephine County there to go look for this 40 pounds of silver and report my son and daughter missing. But they wouldn't go there because they said I had a no contact order and was breaking a third party no contact order. And I was using law enforcement, and don't use them to do my dirty work, and threatened to throw me in jail because of the no contact order. But that's not the truth. The truth is there was no contact order with myself and my daughter. So serious mistake on Josephine County's part. Do believe that's why we saw Pat Wolke come over here from Josephine County, who I reported my daughter and son murdered, or my son, and he told me he didn't know anything about it. So it's going to get out of this county. It already is through appeals. So hope they don't do anything stupid, because, I'm just asserting my right of First Amendment. Speak up about my Fourth and the violations of my Fifth and Sixth of adequate counsel and fair trial. I have, like I said, I have calls into these civil attorneys, so I'm sure they'll be sending an army of people out here, to private investigators, to investigate these things. So unknowing to these people, there'll be people all around here, hopefully, because this case is worth a lot. You can't hit somebody in the face with a grenade. I wasn't calling for any violence. I never called for violence. I actually called for nonviolence. So then by assaulting me, obviously they had other intentions to come out here, to try to get me to come out with some kind of weapon and have a firefight. That's what they bragged about at the local restaurant, that there was going to be some constitutionalists and they were going to get in a firefight. And that's not at all what happened. So it's all recorded. Kind of a, cops make mistakes, Not all cops are good cops, right? What's the worst thing for a good cop? Bad cops. Sit around and just sit there and watch those bad cops do that. It makes them all bad cops. But people don't want to hear that. And they don't want to return it to a constitutional republic. They just want to keep doing the go along to get along. But whatever. I gotta put some wood in my fireplace. You have to pardon me here.
go. Uno momento. Por favor.
We're gonna need some cabbage. 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 Where's the other cabbage go? More than half a hand. Hold on a minute. I'm gonna get some cabbage going here. Some cabbage. Oh, this camera right here. Give that to the chickens over there. This one here. Told I'm making some cabbage.
Down there. Mm-hmm. Where's the butter? There's the butter. Oh, there we go. All right. Got our fire going, ripping. All right. Well, I just ate a little bit of that steak from earlier. I didn't eat it all. So, yeah, you're right, the inadequate counsel. It is what it is. It's Father doing it. I'm not mad at them. I'm mad at myself for not filing the lawsuit sooner. I'm mad at myself for not taking the... Pants, come over here, buddy. For not going and taking the gold and silver and just going on the road. But this is what Father wants, so I have to deal with what Father wants. How bubbin'. Puppy dog. His will be done. If he wanted it to be different, it would be different. But this is the way he wrote it, so. I'll just, one day at a time at this point. So if I can just, make plans. Father will wreck him. Let him do what he wants in my life. That's why I live. So that's what I told myself when I was in jail, that Father doesn't make mistakes. So he wanted me to be somewhere else, I would. They had a plane crash out here. There was a little plane. It was a single engine. the pilot died, and he had a dog with him, with the animal. The dog lived, but the pilot died. Right up here behind us in the hills, right here, over by Summer Lake. So, I haven't seen Yasher show back up. I think I lost Yasher. That's a bummer. I love that kitty. A little older. So, not super old, but I don't know where he'd wander out here too. So, and I went and looked through the back and all the different, the buildings have some trailers back there. I mean, he could be in some hiding it up back there, but I've been calling for him over and over. He's coming back. So, bummer to lose my kitty over this. That hurts my heart. He was a good kitty. But Kevin's cat's kind of taken over because he likes Juniper. She's not fixed. Maybe that should have had Juniper fixed. Maybe that wouldn't happen. But yeah, she was fixed, and I don't know if Nugget's fixed or not. Let's stir my cabbage out. Get some cracked pepper in there. Where's that pepper at? There it is. There we go. Yeah. Oh man. Making that cabbage spicy. Yeah. Good stuff. There we go. Some good cabbage here. Where's that juice? I'm gonna go get that juice. Where's that juice at? A few more minutes on that. The cabbage is gonna be done. Oh, let's throw that ice in it. Live by myself so I can drink out of the jug. Oh man. That's got ice in the top of that from being outside. It's winter. It's a winter. I knew we were going to have a backside is going to be colder because the front side was real mild. You're my good boy. I love this puppy, boy. You're a good doggy. You're the best puppy dog that ever did best. You sure are. You being such a good boy today. He's the best puppy I ever had. All right. Well, what's on your Sunday? Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. Come on, buddy. You're the best puppy I ever did best. Sure are. Love you. You're my good boy. You're my best guy that ever did guy. You are hanging out with the dad. He sure missed his dad. He sure missed the dad. He missed the dad. He did miss the dad. I love you, Big Pants. You're such a good boy. I know we've been hanging out, huh? Hanging out with the dad. Every single time? Huh? Every single time with the dad? I'm gonna go see if my cabbage is done yet. It smells like it's done. I'll call that done. All right, I made myself some cabbage here. Just to plate is some cabbage. Big old cabbage there. Been craving cabbage the last 4 or 5 months. Fire. Paprika. Chili powder. Lots of pepper. Lots of pepper. Butter. Garlic, salt, and a little bit of Lowry seasoning salt. Oh, and some Himalayan pink salt because I need the iodine. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna get off here. I'll come back on before the end of the day. Eat and relax for a little bit.
Stay in the Word. Father is the Word. The Word became flesh. What did he do? Are you doing the same thing he did? He said, Hados, be in the same narrow way. All right, Pastor Revelation. Whoa.